If your brain is at full capacity with to-dos, birthdays, and dinner plans, meet Skylight Calendar. It syncs your entire family schedule onto a sleek digital display, so you focus on important things like where you left your coffee. Right now, Skylight is offering our listeners $30 off their 15-inch calendars by going to skylightcal.com/talk. Go to skylightcal.com/talk for $30 off your 15-inch calendar. That's skylightcal.com/talk.
You have entered the PM Entertainment Podcast.
Hello and welcome to an all-new episode of the PM Entertainment Podcast, the show that bedecks itself in a series of pastel jackets, barges bystanders out of the way repeatedly, and likes mushrooms on its cereal when it is singing the praises of those purveyors of perfectly executed, pacey, provoked pursuits and pugnacious punch-outs, police actions, and powerful pandemonium. I refer, of course, to the passionate, prolific partnership that provided prime pre-adulthood personages with picture shows packed to popping with palpable, playful, and phenomenal pounding phosphorescence propagation, PM Entertainment. I'm your host, John Cross, and don't forget, if you like the show, please remember to rate and review us on any of the podcasting platforms you use, share our Facebook and Instagram posts, like, comment, and you can contact us via our email, pmentpod@gmail.com. That's pmentpod@gmail.com. This week, we're tackling a film that ranks very highly for many a PM fan, a film where Joseph Mehy and crew were specifically trying to push PM to the next level, the first film where the second unit in stunt coordination was under the expert eye of Spiro Razatos, a film featuring Mike from Breaking Bad as anything but the titular last man standing, and a movie destined to be confused for the Bruce Willis movie that came out the year afterwards by all except a few discerning and intellectual film fans who know that the correct movie is the one that features Jeff Wincott wearing a waistcoat, or vest if you're from the US, without a shirt in its closing moments. That's right, it's 1995's Last Man Standing. Written and directed by Joseph Mehy, starring Jeff Wincott. Our interview guests this week, Jillian McWhirter, Jonathan Fuller, Steve Easton, Robert Lasado, and Jonathan Banks. Art Camacho was the fight choreographer. Spiro Razatos was responsible for the stunts. It was shot by Ken Blakey. Paul Volk was the post-production director, among many other things. And regular composer Louis Febre is making the whole thing sing. It is a shootout, car chase, explosion-rich wham-banger of the highest order with all the PM powerhouses in play. And to talk about this week's film, our guest is a songwriter, musician, published poet, a Hammer horror reviewer extraordinaire, disturbingly shaved. I've known him for about 40 years, so I don't mind it when he complained about the length of the theme music for this very show, and he would have next to no credentials to even be on this show if he hadn't already put up with me in his role as co-host for over 200 of the best episodes of my original podcast, The After Movie Diner. It is none other than old Bumface himself, my brethren from a t'other methrin. It's James, or JEA, or Jim, or Jimothy Wallace. Welcome to the PM Entertainment Podcast.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Excellent. And we always, as I'm sure, because you've been listening to the show, we always ask our new guests some questions.
Far away.
To kind of, I guess, because what I was trying to do with the podcast was really show people, look, I know my onions, but I'm also going to get some guests who know their onions.
Yeah, you want to take a look at my onions.
Right.
You want to take my onions out.
I want to take your onions out. I want to look at your onions.
You want to examine my onions closely.
Yes,
Yeah.
With one of those jeweler's glasses.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like they always have always in like forging.
My onions are always ready for close analysis.
Close analysis with a jeweler's
close
glass.
onion analysis.
So the questions I ask are designed much in the way that on Inside the Actor Studio, the survey that he would use from Bernard Pivot were destined to get to the very core of you.
Right.
My questions are destined to get to the very action movie watching core of you, to establish your credentials.
Right. Shit.
So were you always into action films from an early age?
I don't know that I was, actually, I guess. I suppose I like Bond movies, so that's something. I suppose that's probably where it started, was Bond movies.
Yeah.
And then I think I probably just liked action movies like anybody liked action movies, because those were just the big popular movies. But the idea of being fond particularly of action movies, or being in the mood for an action movie, probably came about more when we started being friends and you started introducing me to the notion of action movies being fun and a thing in and of themselves. And that's when I started to really enjoy them, even if they were like slightly cheaper and sillier.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I think that there's two types, right? There's the blockbuster movie.
Right.
And most blockbuster movies have some element of action in them.
Right.
Right? Indiana Jones, Bond, Lethal Weapon, whatever. But you could also identify those as other genres, right? Bond could be a spy genre. Indiana Jones could be a action adventure movie. The Lethal Weapons could be a thriller or a cop drama, whatever you want to call it. The fact that they have action in them, a lot of those movies seem incidental, the fact that there's action in them. Something like Commando, however, or Cobra, or one of those like Stallone, Schwarzenegger movies, those are action for the sake of being action. You know what I mean? The setup or the plot or the characters or the whatever are secondary. Whereas something like Lethal Weapon, Shane Black scripts that and plots that pretty tightly, so that even though, yes, there's a lot of like comedy, there's a lot of action, there's a lot of stuff, you are engaged in the thriller element of it. Who did the thing? How are they going to get the person? Blah, 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 blah. Whereas something like Cobra and Commando and some of these more like what people think of sort of the big muscled 80s action films are a little bit more like, actually, it doesn't matter who's doing the thing. There's a bad guy, there's a good guy, and we just want to see the good guy. They're the closest in sort of historical genre to the Western, right? It's not necessarily... There are some Westerns where a lot of the characters and drama and relationships and romance and other stuff come into play with what the, stranger from out of town ultimately ends up doing. And then there's other Westerns where the stranger coming in from out of town confronts the gang who are terrorizing the town, and by the end of the movie, they're all dead or arrested. You know what I mean?
I think that's I think that's true. I think you're the one. I think watching more movies with you taught me the value of the second, which I perhaps had not appreciated before. I might have been a bit of a movie snob before that, and be like, "Oh, Kubrick," and stroke your beard, and then at a certain point in my life, I thought like Sudden Death with Jean-Claude Van Damme was completely brilliant. Like I watched it and thought, this is amazing. Like, not ironic.
No.
I just thought it was really fun, really well done, funny, cool. I mean, I loved it. I mean, I actually really love Peter Hyams movies, I think. But that's an example of 10 years before, if I'd watched Sudden Death, I'd think like, well, this is just rubbish.
Yes.
But now a really well done action movie is something I really enjoy. And I do think that's in large part because of watching movies with you.
And I think that's where you take the step down from something, right? So you have the Stallone, Schwarzenegger's, Bruce Willis's. Like last time you were here, we watched Boat Cop, Striking Distance.
Oh, yeah, Boat Cop.
Boat Cop.
Yeah.
And similarly, for every Die Hard that Bruce Willis did, even in the 80s and 90s, he would occasionally do a Boat Cop.
Yeah.
Which was...
Wait, who directed Boat Cop again? Wasn't it somebody who we...
The Boat Cop director is Rowdy Harrington.
Why do I... Okay, it doesn't really matter then.
Rowdy Harrington is known famously for Roadhouse.
Oh, okay, fair enough. I don't know
so Rowdy Harrington made Roadhouse, which works perfectly.
Yeah.
Because Roadhouse is like an A-Team episode with tits and gore. That's what Roadhouse is.
Right.
It's like...
I'm not sure striking distance is like massively different.
No, but it's a lot like striking distance.
As in terms of an A18 with,
Right, but it's not though. Like there's not like striking distance requires or seemingly tries to ask of you that you care about like him and Sarah Jessica Parker. You care about the fact that the bodies keep showing up. You care about, and I don't care about it.
No, that's fair. No.
But I do care about Boat Cop. I care about like him riding about in a boat, being a boat cop. That's what I care about.
Yeah.
So
sorry. Yeah. Question.
No. So the next couple of questions I ask are normally about PM Entertainment.
All right.
Because they are about establishing your connection with the body of work that is PM Entertainment. The interesting thing here is, Jim,
I have never seen a PM Entertainment movie before this one because, I just haven't had a chance to. But since listening, I've become a huge fan of the podcast. And now I want to watch lots of PM Entertainment movies because you make them sound really fun and really great and all the things that I love about a good action movie. So I really wanted to not only watch a PM Entertainment movie, but I wanted to come and watch one with you and have you tell me, like, this is the PM Entertainment. This is the gateway movie for you and PM Entertainment.
Exactly. And I think where you'll connect with this, and I think what you'll understand is that throughout the After Movie Diner series that we did, that you were the co-host on, and we did hundreds of episodes together. What we found, and it's funny, I was just talking to someone the other night who wants to get into podcasting, especially about like movies and things. Uh-huh. And I was sort of talking to them about this idea where you can't really talk about movies that you can't talk about perfect movies. Like no one wants to sit down and listen to you talk about like, well, this is what we found when we were doing the podcast was if it was a movie that we both just unabashedly loved and there wasn't really anything in it that we didn't just unabashedly love, we would just sit there and be like, wasn't it great when this happened? Well, wasn't it great when that happened?
Sometimes I felt like we would talk. It depends what kind of movie it was. If it was something that surprised us and we felt like deserved more, like something like Bagman or
but that's what I was about to say. Yeah, completely. That's what I mean though. There was those movies where like a podcast, me doing a podcast on The Burbs or Evil Dead 2 or even something slightly more complex like Apocalypse Now or whatever, all movies that I really love, I don't know what I'm bringing to that conversation. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like thousands of people have talked about all of those movies at different times, and sure, I might listen to those podcasts and be like, oh, you missed this bit or you missed that bit, but ultimately to me it's not interesting just telling people. Anyway, what we found with the After Movie Diner, and the Bagman is a prime example, where we always found the sweet spot, where our podcasting was always at its best, was either when there was a movie where we had dug into my collection of films or found some DVD or VHS or Blu-ray or whatever that, we hadn't considered before, but we sort of recognized, but we hadn't considered before, that we would watch and be surprised by some of it. Or like the Bagman, a brand new movie that we would go to, the 24th screen at the top of AMC, the only place in New York that was showing the movie like Bagman or Stranded or one of those. And we would try and find the gold or the attempted gold in a film that, while no one's going to look at it and say, this is an unrivaled masterpiece, a lot of people are going to look at it and just dismiss it outright because they're going to be like, well, that's, they're going to have that kind of attitude towards it. And I hate having any kind of like pissy attitude towards a film that I think is really attempting something. Yeah. And so the reason why PM Entertainment to me has found this sweet spot and why I think it works as a podcast and why I think it's interesting that you're on the show to talk about it, because you have this history with me of talking about these kind of films, is that they sort of hit all these sweet spots for us. They're obviously, they're movies that are made with a lot of like gung-ho, daring do, like get it done, you know what I mean? Call in favors, shut down this road, blow up a thing, whatever. Like it's all done with a very kind of, we're getting together, we're putting on a show, let's move on, next thing, 3 takes, on we go. Right, so there's no pretension there. That's one of the things. The other thing is that they are films that know what Hollywood was doing. Like they can see the Lethal Weapons, the Commandos, the Cobras, whatever it is. They can see what they're doing and going, well, I think we can approximate that. But there are also ones that because they did it enough and because they did it with such frequency and with such ultimate professionalism and skill down the road, and they found their people, they found their group, they actually ended up becoming PM entertainment films. Like yes, you recognize them as an action movie or you recognize them as a drama, you recognize them whatever, and they're very competently made, but they have something that is just a little left of center that makes them PM entertainment films. And that's also something we always liked finding. So I feel like when it comes to you and I talking about these movies, because of our history on the After Movie Diner, that's kind of where
that's fair.
PM sort of sits.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's what I enjoyed about like listening to the podcast and listening to the movies that you love. That's why I wanted to watch them. Like exactly that is what.
Yeah, definitely. And so the other questions that we have are all very PM related. So I'm not going to go into those.
What are they?
Well, one of them is when did you put together that PM was a company that was putting out a lot of these movies? In other words, if you've been
when
watching,
you began the podcast,
when I began the podcast, right? Exactly. And do you have a favorite PM film?
This one,
Last Man Standing, right? Exactly.
Although the other ones that I'm intrigued by a lot of the other ones you've reviewed, and I do really want to watch them. So I am gonna at some point.
Yeah, because in the past, and again, I feel like we're definitely at that. And I see this around me actually with some of our peers, but also some of the people like famous people or whatever. People of our age group seem to be like growing and changing and opening up more than maybe they did when they were angry young men in their 20s or 30s. Or when, like you said, they were more snobby about certain things or whatever. And not that I think I could have sat you down tonight and watched Guardian Angel and you would have had a different take on it. But I do feel that when I tried to sit you down to watch Guardian Angel, there was a little bit of your dismissive Jim, like right from the beginning to a little bit. Is that fair? Or?
Yeah, I think that's fair.
I mean,
no, because I don't know about that. I don't think that was...
I did try and sit him down to watch Guardian Angel.
That's so that was before you did the podcast.
Yes.
And we were there to watch a movie.
Well, you wanted to watch a Cynthia Rothrock movie.
I wanted to watch a Cynthia Rothrock movie.
I was trying to find the best one.
Right, but it was very low budget and very cheap. And
isn't that the same thing?
And I wasn't. Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I guess. But low budget doesn't have to look cheap, right? Like that was low budget. Like you were saying, they only cost like $350,000, but it like looks fantastic. Whereas the other one did look like they just went to the local pub and like paid a bunch of guys 10 quid to pretend to be drug dealers. I wasn't pulled into it in any way.
Right.
And I was expecting to see like an 80s polished masterpiece of like martial arts cinema.
Right.
And not like like low budget nonsense.
I should have just shown you writing right.
Which is fine. But I'm saying that it wasn't so much dismissive as I wasn't prepared for what it was the PM entertainment movies had to offer.
Right.
I don't think I would have enjoyed this as much, and without having heard all your other episodes, to understand what to expect, what they were doing, why it's interesting, what there is to love. In other words, I suppose. Yeah.
So what I'm very excited by, therefore, is that simply by starting the PM Entertainment podcast, which, by the way, between you and me, I never expected you to listen to, because you never really, I mean, and again, I don't mean this, it wasn't like you sat there and listened back to the After Movie Diner episodes.
Sometimes I did if they were good fun ones, especially if like enough time had passed that I forgot. You know what I mean? Some of the pandemic ones I would go back and listen to because they were fun.
They were great. The
Joe
Eric Idle ones and
the Burn Hollywood Burn I enjoyed because we were both so just utterly dismayed.
Well, we did a great, like we did Eric Idle, we did Donald Pleasance, we did
Eric
some
Idle
detective
season
ones.
was a good. Yeah, when that kept me sane during the pandemic. Those little seasons that we did, really really helped keep me sane.
No, I love those, and I always like. Again, I always like when I find an actor, a producing team, a composer, a director, whatever it is, when I find that and I go on a deep dive, right? Wings Hauser, Donald Pleasance, Michael Moriarty, PM Entertainment, whatever it is. When I go on a deep dive with people, I'm doing it right now in the After Movie Diner with my friend Gary Hill. We're covering Michael Pare movies. Because you're like, well, I know of Michael Pare. Like, I know Eddie and the Cruisers, and I know some of the other stuff he's done. But, like, know Michael Pare. You know what I mean? I want to squeeze the essence of Pare and understand it. And we have, thankfully, and it has continued to ring true, by just picking random Pare movies in the sort of 4.7 to 5.5 kind of IMDb range. Right. We've actually ended up finding some incredible...
You normally never go below... Oh, is it below 4 you won't?
Below 4.
Below 4, okay.
Unless I know categorically that it's going to be a movie that I enjoy and everyone on IMDb is just being an ass. Right. Which does... There are some like 3.5 movies on IMDb that I'm like, 3.5, this is an 8.2, you know. This is not a 3.5. But then there are other ones which sort of hover around the 4 to 6 mark, where I will normally rank them 8, 9, or 10, and most other people are ranking them like 2, 3, 4, and that's why they're kind of ending up right 5 or 6. And so during the Pare thing, again, I've never done a deep dive on any of these actors, production companies, directors, whatever it is, and been disappointed. I've always found gems.
It's sort of like when I was watching all the Hammer movies, and after a while, you appreciate the artistry of it. Just, they haven't got a lot of money, they need to make a horror movie, and this is what they came up with. That instead of thinking like, is this either worth 2 hours of my time, or is this worth like $250 or whatever you paid for it? Instead, it's like, well, it's a Hammer movie, so who's Michael Ripper going to play in this one? And like, what's their take on this? And that you can appreciate individual parts of it in a way that enriches your understanding of the whole enterprise, and not just judging whether this one movie is a 4, 5, or 6 on IMDb or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. I've always felt that doing deep dives on stuff not only yields dividends. Like I've never been disappointed ever. I've never got 3 or 4 movies into a Michael Pare or Wings Hauser deep dive and gone, nope. Like that's never happened. I've always gone, oh my goodness, what is this?
Yeah.
And PM was the same for me. And I've explained before, like I came to PM because mainly Paul Croson, Dr. Action from my previous show, sent me a bunch of DVDs years ago. And a lot of them just ended up being PM. In fact, we opened a DVD disc of this double
that
disc.
may well have had his literal fingerprints on it.
It literally had his fingerprints on it because he had left a little note in there saying, hey, I sent you this, box of DVDs or whatever. And so these are ones that, I started to recognize pretty much when I was doing those shows with him, a few years back. And Last Man Standing, which we're talking about today, I would say what's a great thing for you coming to PM this way is that you've heard the podcast, so you're sort of aware of, and we've covered, the only thing we really haven't covered in the podcast yet is like one of their tournament films, sort of one of their blood sport type films. But we've covered pretty much everything. We've covered a very early one with Shotgun, which is sort of very rough around the edges, kind of sleazy. They're still trying to find their way. We've covered some of their let's just shoot on Hollywood Boulevard a lot and have some sleaziness and some violence and maybe the odd car chase, but it's not full-blown action. And then we've covered like lots of their like action stuff. And this one comes in 1995, which I'm going to tell you, like 1994 is when the light bulb goes off. 1995 is when they are about to hit their like zenith, their peak, their sweet spot. So like 94, 95, 96, and 97, these are your prime PM years. These are when they're working with Gary Daniels, Jeff Wincott, Don the Dragon Wilson, and they are predominantly, I mean, they do other stuff. They do some family stuff and they do some weird stuff like the Bigfoot films and things. But in general, they are what most people know from this era are the action-heavy, car chase-heavy, stunt-heavy films. And Last Man Standing makes so many people's top 5 lists.
Yeah, and it was mentioned like on the the last one I heard, Last Man Standing was mentioned. And I know, especially with Jeff Wincott, who I know you've talked about, but I've never seen Wincott in anything.
Right. You've seen his brother and stuff.
I've seen it. That was great. And as soon as you mentioned that Michael Wincott was his brother, I could see the resemblance, although not the vocal resemblance, obviously. But that was why I was quite excited to watch this one too, because I know that it had been referenced on a couple of occasions as like a classic of the genre. When people were naming like their top 5 PM movies, like I think this one came in quite a few people's as they were like whittling down their favorites. This was always one of them.
Well, it has just about weirdly enough, it has just about a bit of everything in terms of their straight action films. It doesn't have a bit of everything in terms of the full range of what PM did. I suppose, it has the strip club scene, which sort of adds a little of their sort of early seediness into it.
Kind of got to have a strip club scene.
You've kind of
when
gotta
a cop's got to go and hunt down anything, any kind of information. That information is usually in a strip club.
Yeah.
That's just how it works.
So in the earlier 92, 93, 94 PM films, a lot of night shoots, a lot of seedy saxophone, Hollywood Boulevard, neon drenched, and you get a bit of that in the chemical plant sequence.
Yeah.
You get some of that like smoke and like they really make the air,
the unexplained criminal enterprise that taking place in a chemical plant.
At a chemical plant that we never find out.
All we know is make sure you bring your suits.
Yes.
Whatever you're going to do in the chemical plant in your criminal enterprise, just make sure you're wearing a suit and tie.
Yes.
You can't be handling illegal chemical plant unexplained
Without
activities without a suit.
Yeah, that's true. So you get some, I guess this has a bit of everything.
But you be the judge. Does it have a bit of everything? Because before we delve any further, you know what time it is by what Jim would no doubt refer to as another pointless and overly long jingle.
It's the PM Entertainment Bullet Points.
All right, we have beating round the face with the butt of a shotgun, beating around the head and neck with a baton, a highly dramatic and violent bank robbery, car chases, repeated explosions, hotel foot chase, bread trays deployed repeatedly as obstacles, several extras barged out of the way, knocked down or slammed into walls, high fall from hotel balcony into swimming pool, martial arts, arm breaks, neck breaks, wrench fight, truck driving through guard building and police cars causing explosion, more explosions with stuntmen flying out in front of them. Jeff Wincott steals bike and sunglasses from innocent bystander and throws them to the floor. Armored van and motorbike chase featuring car explosions, car flips, shotgun blast, jumps and wheelies. Police car ramped into the air and twisting over next to the motorbike, jumping a flatbed while everything explodes behind them. Wincott stunt double standing on moving motorbike and diving from bike into back of armored van. Fight with sacks of money. Wincott stuntman dragged behind armored van on sacks of money. Wincott stuntman slammed into concrete partition of the freeway. Shooting glass bottles with wife while shirtless in the desert. Jillian McWhirter and Jeff Wincott really running away from a giant barn explosion in slow motion. Corvette chase ending in an insane bridge crash and both Corvettes completely totaled. Hotel shootout, chemical plant shootout, parking lot shootout, strip club bar fight that becomes strip club shootout, villain hideout shootout, second strip club shootout, metro station shootout, gratuitous silky silver hair, gratuitous pastel jackets, gratuitous comical character actor as hotel manager, gratuitous diving behind furniture and through mirrors in slow motion, gratuitous running through panes of glass, gratuitous love scene with bunch of roses, gratuitous Jeff Wincott smoking a bazillion cigarettes, gratuitous shirtless Jeff Wincott, gratuitous snakeskin boots, gratuitous close-up of buttock tattoo, gratuitous Weekend at Bernie's dead villain ruse, gratuitous troubadours that turn out to be gun-wielding cops, and gratuitous and needless murder of hostage. Wow, what a list.
Anyway, so let us I'm going to hand it over to you.
Oh, Jesus.
Because we always used to do this on the After Movie Diner, and it's always fun. But I tend to make my guests go through the plot, A, because I don't like doing it generally, but also because with you, we had a running joke on the After Movie Diner that you would do the plot, and I'd be like, nope, here's why you got that wrong. So,
Right.
and look, I don't envy you in this, because I feel like while
just watched it,
while this holds together as a, like, you watch this and you go, oh, it's a fun cop versus bad guys action movie. If you try,
there were a couple of times you're like, wait, what?
What's going
on? Who's that guy he just shot?
Yeah.
Oh, like that happened a few times.
Yeah.
All right, so I have to explain the plot of Last Man Standing.
A little bit, yeah.
All right,
or
so
the elevator pitch, I guess.
Okay, elevator pitch. Okay, so Jeff Wincott is described by other people as a good cop, even though, as you've pointed out, one of the first things he does in the chemical plant is break somebody's neck.
Yes.
With no clear idea of who they are at that point.
No,
it's just somebody who jumps out at him and Jeff breaks his neck,
Yes.
which I feel like that's a little
Well, not only that,
harsh.
but they go to a hotel, the very opening, so they go to a hotel for a mild disturbance and end up wrecking an entire hotel suite.
Oh, that's
throwing
right.
a guy
Yeah.
out
Okay.
of a
Right.
window.
Okay. So. Okay. All right. So. Okay. Let me try to go back to the beginning here. All right. There is a gang robbing banks in LA.
Yeah.
Coincidentally, Jeff Wincott gets called to a hotel room where some guy who's not really explained is getting paid off for some reason by the bank robbers, and then because the bank robbers want to like make sure they keep it on the down low, execute the guy with a machine gun in the hotel room. Also, having been asked to leave, when the hotel guy, presumably having been asked to leave, says, "If you don't leave, I will call the police." Like, forget it. We're having a secret meeting where we plan to murder somebody. So could you please leave us alone?
Yes.
Call the police all you like, apparently, because we've got murder to do. Which
Yeah.
again, anyway, whatever. So they're meeting in the room. Jeff and his partner,
Jonathan
Banks. Gets called to the disturbance. The disturbance is some people won't check out. It's like, I don't know that armed detectives are going to arrive, do you know what I mean, that quickly for some people won't check out of a hotel room. I feel like Jeff's pretty low down in the pecking order of the detective assignments.
Yes.
But anyway, he gets called. Fortunately, murder is committed.
Yeah.
And Jeff has to chase down some bloke with very natty hair and a baggy suit.
Yes.
Through quite a cool, windy like hotel. Like it's like a nice big LA hotel. There's lots of like brightly carpeted, like long corridors and like chasing through a kitchen. Anyway, I'm really telling this badly, aren't I? I'm doing a thing. Okay, so sorry. Bank robberies. Bank robber gets caught by Jeff Wincott and put in jail. However, it turns out that Wincott's new lieutenant is in league with the bank robber.
Something to do with a transfer from Boston, and we never quite find out why that's criminal.
Yeah, for whatever reason, the bank robber and the lieutenant are in cahoots.
Yes.
And so he gets let out.
Yeah.
Wincott and Banks, Wincott basically accuses the lieutenant of stealing money because he's seen it in the hotel and there was like hundreds of thousands of dollars, and the lieutenant's been like, well, there's only a few grand, so that presumably...
when they go to check in evidence...
Yeah, well, no, because presumably the reason he's been granted bail is because there was hardly any money. That's why. And also he got to take all the money. So, right, what happens next? Then they get called to the chemical plant. After that, again, unconnected, but they still get called to the chemical
They've heard
plant.
shots.
They've heard shots, but it doesn't have anything to do... It's a separate criminal enterprise.
It is. Well, is it or isn't it?
No, it's because there's the baggy suit grey hair man isn't there. There's nobody from the bank robbing gang that's at the chemical plant. They just get called. They only get called to hotel room disturbances and funny noises in chemical factories.
Yeah.
That's all Jeff is equipped to handle.
No. The guard of the chemical factory who
Calls
only
the
gets paid
coppers.
$5 an hour.
Right.
Hears a gunshot. So it's not just
a
like
gunshot in a
weird
chemical
noise.
plant. Right. So it's people who don't check out of hotels and weird noises in chemical plants. That's what Jeff gets. So Jeff and Jonathan get called out.
Yeah.
Now
Wincott and Banks.
Wincott and Banks. Now,
Which is so a USA Network show.
Yeah, USA Network show. Wincott
and Banks.
So Wincott and Banks get called to the chemical plant. That's when Jeff breaks somebody's neck
and hits another guy around the face with a wrench.
Which I did think was really hilarious because it was so like he just jumped out at you and you broke his neck. He could have been literally anybody, but whatever.
Yeah. Well, don't jump out on Jeff. That's the whole.
Don't jump on Jeff. Don't jump Jeff.
He
should get on the back of his pastel blazer. He should don't jump me. That's what he should.
Don't jump on Jeff.
So don't jump on Jeff. So they get called to the chemical plant. He breaks somebody's neck.
Yes.
And then Jonathan Banks gets in a hostage situation, with a gun pointed at his head by one of the chemical plant gang. Jeff puts his weapon down, but the lieutenant shoots the guy who's holding Banks hostage from behind, which means that the guy then murders...
Seagrove. You're talking about whenever you say lieutenant, you mean Seagrove.
Seagrove shoots the bank robber, who then kills Banks, and Jeff is understandably very, very angry.
Yeah.
Now, Seagrove's boss, the captain, next day, obviously Jeff's very upset about this.
Captain
DeMeo.
Played by Michael Green.
Right. Captain DeMeo then calls Jeff into his office and says something like, Basically, it's
You
all
never
your
give up
fault.
your gun.
You never give up your gun. Seagrove saved your life. He's a hero. You're on probation. Now, from this point on, that's like all a very convoluted setup. At that point on, Jeff is off the force. He's handed in his gun and his badge. And as the movie goes on, he becomes more and more convinced that what's really going on here, because the bank robbery guy gets let out again.
Yes.
He gets let out again. That's right. Bank robbery guy gets let out again and coincidentally robs his wife's bank. Again,
Yes.
nothing to do with Jeff. His wife just happens to work there at the bank. Jeff is visiting his wife.
He drives back to give her
He
glasses.
but she's already wearing.
Even though she's already
wearing
her
her glasses, but he drives back.
Yeah.
Which is like, okay, I mean, that's fine. She's got 2 pairs of glasses. These things happen.
She needs both.
Jeff
pairs.
is normally
It was the
usually
90s. Look.
Jeff is usually busy breaking men's necks without
Yes.
asking any questions to worry about what is going on with his wife's glasses. That's probably why she has 2 pairs, because Jeff's too busy breaking necks to care about glasses.
Yeah.
So he drives back to give her the glasses and then busts up like the bank robbery in progress that's coincidentally happening. That leads to an amazing chase scene where he again... No, he doesn't arrest him, but...
Well, no, he's
he
hanging
causes
off the
like
back
a
of
ton
the armored van.
Yeah, that's right.
and then-
They get away, but they cause a shit ton of damage.
Yes.
So the captain's really upset with them. He's like, first of all, you're off the force. Second of all, that cost a fortune. And Jeff, not unreasonably, points out, right, but the crime was committed by a bloke that was just let out. And that's when he formally accuses Seagrove
Well, this is what's hilarious.
of corruption.
Is they talk about, well, we really need evidence. We
Yeah.
really need evidence. And you're like,
You've got several
you've got
eyewitnesses.
so much evidence. Now, they don't have evidence that connects Snake to Seagrove, but they've got enough
they do
evidence
have
to
enough
put
evidence to
Snake
arrest-
away.
Yeah,
for,
and he's just like wandering around. That's totally fine.
Yeah.
So Jeff is still off the force and yet also meeting with his captain to explain why he chose after a bank robbery.
Right.
And isn't in trouble for that. The captain is... Oh, no, I guess he is kind of in trouble. Anyway.
Well, he
Jeff,
was never off the force. He was put on...
He was put on probation and he had to hand in his gun and his badge. He had to hand in his gun and his badge.
No, but he said he was on something leave, like paperwork, like desk leave.
Oh, yeah, he had to be
whatever.
part of it. It wasn't really made clear.
No.
But he definitely had to hand in his gun and his badge.
But he's also being pursued by like some rogue IA agents who are not IA at
No,
all.
they're
Those
not.
are-
No, that's later. So what happens
Right.
at this point is
Yeah.
Jeff formally accuses Seagrove of being corrupt.
Yes.
And then at that point,
Yeah.
IA come and visit him and be like, oh, this corruption thing is interesting. We should meet in an underground car park to discuss.
Yes.
Why would you meet in an underground car park? You're already in a police station talking about it. Why do you need to have another meeting
Well, you do. I mean, it's important.
in an underground car
It's
park?
imperative.
And the whole is like, oh, they weren't really IA agents. They were actually hitmen. It's like, but they were in the police station talking to him in an
Right.
interview room.
Yeah, but that's
Anyway,
how that
whatever.
works.
Whatever. Yeah, you're right. So...
Well, don't forget, DeMeo is crooked. So DeMeo
DeMeo's
can let
right.
anyone
So
into his-
so Jeff suspects not only is Seagrove crooked, but
Yeah.
the captain must also be crooked because they're all in on this. So him and his wife drive away in a stolen Corvette to a shack where the world
steals a lot of vehicles.
Steals a lot of
He
vehicles.
steals that motorbike, which is a phenomenal.
Oh yeah, he
thing.
just like pushes the guy. He steals like 2 guys' cars.
He does, yeah.
Yeah, he breaks necks to steal a car. Again, not a good cop.
No.
So they drive off to a.
The moral is, Jim, there are no good.
There are no
cops.
good cops. There are no good. So they drive off to like a shack in the Hollywood Hills.
Yes.
To lay low. And at that point, they're found on the basis that the car he stole has a thing in it. And the way that the bank robbers decide to deal with them is while they're sleeping, they sneak in to where they're sleeping. And instead of shooting them in the head, instead put some bombs in the building and then they set timers and then they leave. They're like, job done.
Well,
What could possibly go wrong with this plan?
This is the other thing we need to explain about the bank robbery team.
Right.
Is that the bank robbery team have, prior to robbing any bank that they rob, rigged several cars.
Oh, that's right. That's their like their thing, right? On the which I did
with
think was pretty
bombs.
cool.
So
I did
as
think
they're
that was pretty
driving
cool.
away, several cars on their route blow up, causing distress for the.
To be
cops
fair,
that are
I did
chasing
like
them.
that. I did think that was
Yeah.
a pretty cool plan.
So they have set
So
themselves
they're,
up as bombers.
that's fair. That's
I'm
fair.
just trying to give you.
They're,
a little,
no,
yeah.
that's fair. They're leaning on their area of expertise.
Which
if
is
you
bombing.
ask people
Yes.
who, when they're like asked to solve a problem, i.e., how do you get away from a bank, and their
Right.
answer is make things explode.
Yes.
If you ask them to solve a problem like Jeff, they're probably gonna go to
How do you solve a problem like Jeff
Jeff
Wincott?
make things explode, right? That's what they know. So no surprise, that's what they go for. Unfortunately, it doesn't
Right.
work.
No.
So Jeff and his bird drive back to the city.
Yeah.
At which point, it's basically a showdown.
This isn't so much as the plot as the whole damn movie. But yes, keep going. Yeah.
Well, it's very complicated. Essentially, Jeff
This
has
is
to...
the most in-depth you've ever got. Normally on the After Movie Diner, I'd ask you for the plot, and you'd be like, there's a cop and some bad guys.
I enjoyed it.
Okay,
I've gone too far.
yeah.
He drives back. He gets involved with... he listens back to tapes of...
Well, Jonathan Banks is writing a book.
Jonathan Banks is writing a book. Oh, that's right. Jonathan Banks is writing a book. This is one of the things I loved about this movie.
Right.
They had narrative problems. Like,
Yes.
whenever you're writing a story, you're going to come across narrative problems, right?
Yeah.
Well, we need to do this, so how are we going to make that happen? And they come up with solutions that are absolutely solve that problem, while at the same time making no sense at all. So what they've got is, right, well, we need Jonathan Banks to have evidence. He's writing a book. Well, writing a book isn't really evidence. So we should have him like talking about it. So it should be like he's recorded himself. So, okay, great.
Because his mum says he doesn't even like to write.
That's the thing. It's like,
Yeah.
so it's like, well, how do we get it so that he's recorded it when he says he's writing a book? I know. We'll say that he doesn't like to write. So wait, what? It could be literally anything. Like, well, he wants to get evidence down. He had a tape recorder, anything, but not like he doesn't. Yeah, his mum says he doesn't even like to write addresses on envelopes. So, well, that's a commitment to the idea of not liking writing, and I think
Right.
that's a splendid solution to that particular.
By the way,
problem.
Jonathan Banks in a long line of PM Entertainment characters who, for many different reasons, live with their parents.
I do think that's. But I liked that thing where.
A parent
when
who
Jeff
is
has-
sort of senile because she's serving him mushrooms.
Yeah, like mushrooms
on-
and cereal. Yeah, she's
cereal.
like she's gone a bit mad.
Yeah.
But I like when Jeff goes to like break the news instead of it being like breaking the news to the young wife and family or whatever. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it was like we need something emotionally manipulative here.
Kindly old
we
mum.
need, but so kindly old mother. It's like
Yeah.
it's sort of like a Western kind of a thing, which
Yes.
I like. Anyway, Jonathan Banks, who doesn't like writing envelopes, so records his book, which is basically him dishing the dirt on all his former colleagues.
While also saying what a swell guy Jeff Wincott is.
Yeah, which is all like, well, this is massively hearsay when it's
Yeah.
just a bloke
Jeff
saying,
Wincott sitting around in a hotel room without a shirt
without
on,
a shirt
for
on,
reasons known only to
smoking
Jeff Wincott.
and listening to the tapes. And then
He smokes so
he
much
does
in
smoke
this
a lot
movie.
of cigarettes. So anyway, on the tapes, it says, "Oh, this bloke you can trust. He's from Actual Internal Affairs."
Yeah.
So they go and see him. He says, "You need a link between Seagrove and the bank robber,
Snake
Underwood."
Underwood.
Great name for a villain.
Yeah.
And then the rest of the movie is him basically like chasing down Snake Underwood and then having a big fight with both the Seagrove and then the captain. And that's basically it. It's like Jeff's revenge for the death of his partner.
Yes.
That's kind of it, right? I think I covered
I mean,
basically. They could have watched the whole movie.
Yes.
That basically took the running time of the movie for me to
It
talk
did.
about that.
It did.
Sorry about that.
But well done. No, yeah, essentially.
But we're,
Well, no, because now we'll go kind of scene by scene and favorite scenes. I mean,
Okay.
So the opening with PM Entertainment, we always get like especially by this point in their oeuvre, if that is a word I can use around PM Entertainment.
yeah.
Their genre cliches or whatever you want to call it.
This is Jeff's yellow pastel jacket. Era.
The yellow pastel,
The yellow
yes,
pastel
at the
jacket.
beginning. We have yellow pastel, green pastel, and then kind of like a bluey teal thing that kind
Yeah.
of lasts a scene.
And then he just goes full baggy shirt.
I thought, yeah, well, then he's wearing like a blouse at the he's wearing like a shirt that's like part beetle collarless shirt
Yeah.
and part like troubadour blouse.
Yeah, it's kind of like Errol Flynnish, which
Yes.
given the whole
Well, given the
thingy.
whole Snake Underwood thing being like, I'm a swashbuckler,
I'm
me,
Errol
I'm
Flynn,
Errol
baby.
Flynn, which is weird because although at the beginning we see him hitting people with like a baton, he's never like he
they
should
could have leaned into that more.
He should have had a sword or something.
Yeah,
or like
I know.
a-
I'm 100%.
Yeah.
Looking back, I do feel like they missed a trick.
Yeah.
If they're going to call him the swashbuckler, he's got swashbuckling hair.
Oh,
there's
I mean,
no
the
doubt
hair-
that hair buckles swashes. There's no question in my
that
mind.
hair equal. If you look up swashbuckler in the dictionary, it's just a
It's just
photograph
gonna be
of that hair.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I would say it buckles swashes in the double figures
All over the place.
Yeah, absolutely. It's
I
a
mean, there
double
are-
figure buckling.
There are
swash.
no swashes unbuckled within his vicinity.
But you're right. They should have given him a sword. He
Right.
robs banks with a sword. You go, it's a bloke robbing banks with a sword.
Yes.
That would give it a bit of like. Anyway. I feel
No,
like I missed a trick
occasionally
there.
you see. So this happens occasionally with PM Entertainment films as well. Where, and again, I would never say that it's because they're not good enough because they're all good enough.
Yeah.
But occasionally you see something where you're like, if you were just...
Well, the thing is...
There's a thing you could have done there that would have elevated this even higher in the bananas state.
But I suppose the point of why they're so good, or at least this is my my feeling.
No, I love that
you're
like from my podcast and watching this movie, you have fallen in love with PM Entertainment.
No, I have, totally.
It means so much to me that that's what's happening.
Yeah, but it's great, man. Well, I think because of how you've described the movies to me, I can see how they need to get it done quick and they need to get it done cheap.
Yeah.
And every movie is like, how do we get from one thing to the next thing, right? That's all it really is. And especially since, as you pointed out, what's so great about the movies is how do we get from one action scene to the next action scene?
Right.
We know things need to happen because like those scenes need to have weight, but we just need to get there quickly. So I like the fact that every solution they pick is kind of feels like a little bit on the fly and a little bit, well, this is just what needs to happen. But also they're falling, it feels like they fall back on structure, but not ideas. In the structure of like, we need a reason why he needs to speak into a recorder because we've got this thing in our head where he's going to like listen to it on the tape. Like that's obviously what they had in their heads.
Right.
And it's sort of like, so they know they need an answer to that question, but the answer is always a bit weird and a bit left field.
Yes.
Because it's like, well, we just need an answer. It doesn't really matter what it is. And so because they're like,
I'm writing a book,
little
but
odd,
I really hate to write.
But I really hate
won't even
address it.
Yeah, I won't even address an envelope. Yes.
So I like the solutions are peculiar rather than just pulled from another movie or pulled from a screenwriting how-to book or whatever. Just like a boring idea you've seen a million times. The answer to the question is always slightly odd, it seems like anyway, which is what gives it its charm. So even though they miss tricks every now and then, it feels like, well, they're missing a trick because they're just trying to get to the next thing. They're not necessarily thinking what's the best, they're just thinking what's the fastest.
But then you also get, I think one of the things, and it's lucky that they have Jonathan Banks as sort of their ace in their sleeve a little bit to deliver this soliloquy, but like there is something that I think is like a really great bit of screenwriting, which is, so we meet Jonathan Banks, we know he's his partner, but he's living at home with his mum, right? Yeah. And we don't really know much about that.
Yeah.
What we see is his mum serving him mushrooms and cereal and pouring milk on it and him being like, mum. So your mind kind of goes to, she's old and senile and a little weird or whatever. But she's trying to do her best because she's like, well, you like mushrooms? Like I put mushrooms on anything. He's like, yeah, okay. So they've established this thing. But they've also established it in a way that's made you go, I'm sorry, what's going on? But then he sits down in this diner, right? And they have to solve two problems, right? They have to solve the fact that Banks doesn't want to go after Seagrove, right? And he's the older cop, longer in the tooth, been around the block.
But in a way that makes him like still an admirable character, worthy of revenge.
Right.
Worthy of avenging, I guess.
Coupled with the fact that we have to explain how he wound up this late middle-aged man living with his mum again.
Yeah.
Right? So he tells this great soliloquy about how, like, his ex-wife was caught...
You're right, that's a good story.
Right.
That's just a genuinely good story.
In a sleazy motel with another cop.
Yeah.
They get a divorce. She goes off with this other cop. She then gets caught cheating on that other cop. And that cop, that she was the original guy that she was cheating on Banks with, kills all of them and ends up in prison, right? And this leads Banks to two things. One, going back to live with his mum. And two, deciding...
don't get involved.
Don't get involved. I'm still here.
Yeah.
Whenever you get involved, whenever you try... Because he tells this great story about it. I went to the hotel. I saw them, doing the deed. And I didn't say anything. I just shut the door and I left. Because it's like, I know what I'm going to do. I'm just going to leave her. But like, let's not get involved with whatever this is.
Yeah, he's also like, I guess, relatably human as well. He's relatably kind in that his mum puts the mushrooms on the cereal thing is a neat trick too, because there's different ways to react to that, right? You could have him be like angry and be like, my mum, I'm living with my mum, or whatever. And then you'd be like, well, he's a bit of a dick. Or he could be like, hey, don't worry, mum, I'll take care of you, or whatever. He could be like syrupy and again, like not really relatable. But instead, he sort of rolls his eyes and goes, well, of course I don't want mushrooms on my cereal. And then he makes a joke about how like she makes a great strawberry omelette. You know what I mean? It's like he makes gentle fun of her, but obviously he's kind and like his mum loves him. It wants to give him mushrooms, but he'll like do you know what I mean? He's not patronizing or mean. He's sort of rolling his eyes, sort of has to put up with how weird she is. But the fact that he obviously has to put up with this all the time means he has to be a good son. Like, obviously she's driving him crazy, but he's a good son.
Right.
So it's a way of making him it's not just the Mushroom Story, it's how he reacts as a character in Mushroom Story that makes him a good man, and again, worthy of avenging. But you're right, that story was it was very short, very neatly told, and leaves you with a thing where it's like you say, he's a good man and he's right not to get involved.
But
That's
you
a
know
good
what?
choice.
Do you know what we never get an answer to?
What's that?
Throughout the whole movie.
Okay, what's that?
Is what is that trophy on his bedside table?
No, we're never going to know. We're never going to know.
When Jeff goes looking for the book that he's been writing, he finds that there is a trophy on his bedside table that is never mentioned. And if you look at Banks in the movie, you know, you can't. I mean, he never mentions that he's on a bowling league or a golfing thing or whatever.
Oh, he's on a bowling league.
He's on a bowling.
He's got to be on a bowling league.
Yeah,
That's
he's on
my
a bowling
guess.
league.
Yeah.
Yeah, you reckon
trophy.
it's like a bowling trophy?
Definitely it's a
from,
bowling
yeah,
trophy.
yeah. From
for
like
sure.
a few years ago.
Oh yeah, back in his youth.
Yeah,
back in his misplayed youth.
His right arm had
Yeah.
more swing to it.
Yeah.
No, I think there's some. I know what you're saying, and I agree with you. There's definitely some non sequiturs in it. But I also wonder if you went back to the Cobras, Commandos, whatever those, even the striking distances or whatever of the Hollywood world, we could probably find the same non sequiturs. I just think that what's interesting about Hollywood is they package those a little better. I think what's interesting about PM Entertainment is they never let the movie slow down long enough for you to really care.
Yeah, no,
because just
I
as you're
agree with that.
asking, like, wait, why is this going on? There's a shootout, a car chase, some boobies, like something happens.
I would say there's a couple of things I was surprised by.
Okay,
in the
I
movie.
want to hear those.
One was how well written it was.
Yeah.
Even the things that didn't make sense were at least imaginative.
Right.
You know, there's not things that are like, well, that doesn't work.
Right.
Because there were things that, in fact, even the scene that I was like, wait, who's this guy? Whatever. It's like, it's fine. Like, just let it play out. It's like, oh, that's right. They're going to the drug dealer's house because that's what they said they were going to do.
Right.
So even though there was a moment of confusion, it all became clear what was happening.
Yes.
But the story with the his wife in the hotel was really neatly told.
Yeah.
It barreled along nicely. It all made enough sense. There wasn't like the stakes were clear. The acting was much better than I was expecting. Like both the sergeant and the captain.
Yeah.
And Wincott was also really. I know he was sort of a bit of a, like occasionally a bit of a square jaw chump, but actually he was really good. And
Wincott is definitely one of the better actors
I thought
of
he
the
was
martial
good.
artists / actors, because I feel like Wincott was probably an actor first who, although Wincott's very good at martial arts and has definitely done other movies outside of PM that focus a lot on his martial arts, I feel like he was, and I don't know his full history, because he was never competitive. It wasn't like, he's not like Van Damme or Speakman or Seagal, who come from like a background of at least tournament fighting or at least training in a
He's
dojo
more an
or
actor than knows martial arts rather than a martial
right,
artist
exactly.
who turned to act.
Yeah. And he's very good at martial arts. And in fact, you know, if you watch stuff like Mission of Justice and some of his other movies outside of PM, where he leans heavier into the martial arts, or Deadly Bet, which is more of a tournament movie that he does for PM, you'll see a lot more of his more traditional martial arts. In this, it's more sort of roundhouse kicks and flipping people and breaking necks and all that kind of stuff, which is equally fun. And he does have a very fun, loose style with his martial arts.
Yeah, no,
It's not
I liked
particularly rigid.
it.
It's kind of,
I liked it.
It's kind of a bit street brawly in a fun way.
I did,
and
yeah.
scrappy.
What was fun about it was I didn't feel like things were being set up for martial arts moves.
Right.
It more felt like the strip club fight was really fun because it was like 6 guys against him, and he dealt with them all in like quite fun, imaginative ways, but also in ways that felt improvised as they would be in a fight, rather than this is the moment where I'm going to do this trick, which sometimes can distract from that. It felt like, they were filming a brawl in a strip club. You know what I mean? Rather than this is a martial arts scene. So I really enjoyed that part of it as well. I enjoyed, the action was fantastic. Like you've said on the podcast a number of times, I really like the way that there aren't boring moments in it. There aren't scenes that you're just saying, skip to the end, let's get to the next bit. It was all it went by, the whole film went by in a flash.
Yeah.
It was, it was the writing, the acting, I was surprised by the quality of the filming as well. Like even when he told me it was, less than $1 million, the scenes were really well shot.
Yeah.
The action was really good. The gunfights were good. The car chases. It was all really, really well put together.
So you're also, what I also really like about this being your first full PM Entertainment film is you are working with a lot of the PM Entertainment all-stars. So
right.
you have Joseph Murray, who's the M in PM.
Yeah.
He writes and directs it. You've got Ken Blakey, who shot like 2/3 of their films.
Yeah, you were right. In the interrogation scene, the way that it's lit,
Yeah.
it's just a room and 3 guys are in it, and the only thing that needs to happen in that
Right.
is like you need to like establish that they're going to make this deal with them in the underground car park. But the way that it's lit, it's kind of sinister and shadowy, and it's
Film noir-y. They
exactly.
lean into like
Yeah,
film.
yeah.
And this is what I love about it is that very often PM Entertainment lean into kind of the old Hollywood way of lighting stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Stuff is often very either shiny or shadowy or smoky or strong depth of field or like a nice grain to the film. Like there's elements to it where you're like, yes, I know this was, made for beans and everyone's just kind of being scrappy and figuring it out, but there is real thought and skill there.
Yeah. It's like you've said, it feels like everything is made with love.
Yes.
In that, well, we're here, we've got a room, we've got some actors, we've got a camera, we've got lights, we've got a few hours.
Right.
Instead of like, we need to get out of here, so just get it done, there's a like, let's try and make this the best we can with what we've got.
Right, and this is also the point that I'll make over and over again about PM Entertainment throughout the show, which is this. Outside of PM Entertainment, there are tons and tons and tons of production companies in the straight-to-video action game. There still are. There still are. Dolph Lundgren, Van Damme, Scott Adkins, Seagal, all these people are still making straight-to-video action movies. There are people like Alexander Nevsky, who's like doing his own thing, who's like a Russian guy who's been trying to produce like low-budget action movies and doing his own thing. There's the Robert Bronzi, which we were talking about before. Is it Roberto Bronzi or Robert Bronzi? I don't know. But he's the guy who looks like Chuck Bronson, who's done like a bunch of like B movies lately and things like that. There's tons of companies out there still to this day making straight-to-video action films, filling up streaming platforms. Whenever I have sat down to watch them, I watch them and I go, those are the movies I have to start making excuses for, right? I watch them and I go, okay, that bit was great, but, right? And there's always a long but. It's always a budgetary but or a acting level but or whatever. There's always like a huge but where you kind of go, well, you know what I mean? Like they can only afford an opening action sequence and an ending action sequence, and the middle is just this soggy pudding where you're expecting, martial artists or whatever who are not necessarily trained in acting to do a lot of heavy lifting with the dialogue. And you're like, very often if you're into straight-to-video stuff, B-movie stuff, call it what you will, you have to make a lot of compensations for that. What I love about PM Entertainment is they don't have any more money than those other guys. They just somehow, in the 12, 13 years that they were operating, captured the right team around them, right?
Yeah.
So Ken Blakey and Rick Pepin being the guys who shoot 90% of their stuff, established a look and feel of PM that leans on both film noir but also glossy Hollywood action sequences. And also, like, if you watch the first Lethal Weapon, as I keep coming back to, there's a lot of, like, noirish elements in that, the way they shoot stuff and so on. Yeah. Action films nowadays everything looks very flat these days. There's not, like, the same kind of filmmaking techniques. So you've got Ken Blakey, who's doing incredible cinematography. You've got Spiro Razatos. This is the first time that Spiro is on a PM Entertainment film doing the Stunt Coordinator. And he's been a stunt coordinator at this point, or at least a stunt man or within the stunt world for quite some years by the time he hits PM. But PM really lets him kind of go overboard and do exactly all of the things that other low-budget films that he worked on, or maybe the horror films that he was worked on, wouldn't necessarily have the ability to do. You have Joseph Murray, who at this point has been making movies for almost 10 years and writing films for almost 10 years and like figuring out his voice, and they've hit they're hitting their peak and everything's going well. You've got Jeff Wincott, who, like we say, has like a much better acting than a lot of martial artists and stuff. They have surrounded him with great character actors, whether it's the henchmen guys or whether it's the big bad guy or whether it's even the captain, the guy who plays the captain.
Yeah, he was very good.
He's just got that great old grizzled character actor face.
Yeah, he's got a bit of like LA Confidential Cromwell.
Right. Yeah, and they all fit a cliched bill. You know, Seagrove looks a bit like, I know the actor he looks like, and I can't think of what he's in right now. So they've got the action, they've got the writing, they've got the cinematography. They're firing on enough cylinders. And somehow PM seemed to know how to keep all that on the screen without it ever really becoming a soggy pudding, or without it becoming a thing where you have to make a lot of excuses because they don't have a lot of money.
Yeah, I suppose it's a thing where I guess you could argue to an extent, if you're making a movie for the cinema, right, then you have to give them something at the beginning so they don't walk out. And you have to give them something at the end to kind of make them leave happy and not annoyed. And if in the middle it kind of sags, it's like, well, they paid their money, we've got them. Like,
right.
If you're making these primarily for like cable TV
or video,
straight to video, but
they
like,
did cable too.
But
they
in the
HBO,
we're talking like the 90s, right?
Yep.
So there's a lot of like cable TV movies.
Yep, Cinemax and
where
HBO
they're making
both.
So they're making a lot of money
from
that. Now, if you're making a movie for TV, you can't afford to have any boring moments in that because people can just change the channel anytime. So you have to keep the pace up all the way through, so that every ad break you're like gonna like come back for more, or is at the end of an exciting sequence or whatever. So I do think that maybe with that in their head, what seems to me is like whatever their budget is, they're like stretching it out all the way through in a really clever way. But I do wonder whether the cable TV thing is a part of it that's in their head, because that must have been a large part of what they're making the money for. You know?
And I mean, a lot of these movies played cinemas overseas. Eastern Europe is a big fan of PM Entertainment films. Asia loves PM Entertainment films. I think there's like some South American fans as well. And they did play festivals and things on the big, and they were shot on 35mm. The first few years they were shot on 16mm, but by the time you got to Last Man Standing, they're all shot on 35mm.
Yeah, I mean, it looks great.
Which is why Claudio Ulrich over at Focus Media in Switzerland is able to make them into Blu-rays, because he has the 35mm. He's not trying to upscale a DVD. He's actually rescanning and remastering.
And is it
film.
widescreen?
Yes.
Is it possible to do that?
It is, yeah. It's possible to do in widescreen. Okay, we have come to the middle section of the show, and you know what that means. It's time for some interviews. And this week, we're exceptionally happy to have the co-star of Last Man Standing, a fantastic actor who handles a lot of the running and gunning herself, PM Entertainment regular who also stars in Rage, The Underground, and the Season 2 finale of LA Heat. It's the wonderful Jillian McWhirter. We also have a clip from our Spiro Razatos interview where he talks about getting the job for Last Man Standing. Don't forget, if you enjoy the show, to rate and review, share, like, comment, email, and all that good stuff. One such fan of the show, who is an exceptional example of all of those things, is Keith McAfee, who wrote us an email this week saying, Episode 9 rules. Really enjoyed the latest episode of the PM Entertainment podcast with Jeff Speakman. Listening to Jeff talk about the business aspect of his films was brilliant. Jeff's insights behind the scenes of his career was legendary. The overall episode was a banger. Keep up the hysterical banter and insightful movie knowledge. Running in a J.C. Penney cheap suit. Laugh out loud. Loyal listener, Kenneth McAfee from the 207. All right. You'll hear a few commercials to help pay for this whole shebang, and then the interviews. Thanks so much for listening. But thanks ever so much for agreeing to talk to us on the PM Entertainment podcast today, Jill. It's a real pleasure.
Of course, you're welcome. PM Entertainment was a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. And there's, the Blu-rays are coming out overseas. Yeah. I don't know if you've heard that. And with Corey doing the book and us doing the podcast, we feel there's a resurgence, a groundswell, I hope.
I saw the TV show that I did for them. I saw that, I guess, at about 6 months ago on, I believe it was free TV. They were airing the whole series.
Yes, no, that's now available on Tubi, Foursome, free TV, and Amazon Prime. You can watch both seasons fully on Amazon Prime. Yeah, so
maybe I'll get some residuals.
Yes, well, hopefully, I hope so.
But now with Claudio over in Switzerland putting them out on Blu-ray and
That's
remastering them from
wonderful.
the 35 millimeter, who knows what's next? I'm excited about it.
Yeah, people like to watch them with the budgets they had. And this is going to sound funny. It blew me away.
Yeah, no, completely what
Physically,
they were
while I
able to
was
do.
in the movie, the bombs going off behind me. And then
Yes.
just to know now that I've been more involved in the film world and on the business side of it, I mean, what they accomplished with such a small budget was beyond me. And their casting director, Mark Sykes, who I had lunch with about a year ago. I mean, they hired some very, very strong actors that were unknown at the time. And you really have to have a key, an insight for that to be
Yeah.
able to get an extremely low budget project to look rich.
Yeah, they seem to put a great team around them, both behind and in front of the
And
camera, that they
exactly.
could always rely on. And in fact, I was going to say, one of the actors you worked with both in the movie Rage and also
Yeah.
on the TV series Kenneth Tiger,
Yeah,
much
yeah.
much like yourself, was in a ton of their things, sort
Yeah.
of popping up in little bits here and there. He's even at the beginning of The Underground. So I think you and Kenneth and a couple of others sort of seem to be almost their stable that they could kind of rely on and bring back for multiple things. Is how did you first come into the world of PM entertainment? How did you first get hired for Last Man Standing?
That it was just an audition process. Real quick, while I'm thinking about this, the
Yeah,
audition process can be very quick or can be very long. For instance, my first film with Roger Corman, and I know these are two different companies,
yeah, of course.
but I had 7 callbacks for that project because I had done no films whatsoever. And Carl Franklin was the director.
Right.
Michael Pop and Michael was a DP, and Janisch, who is now Steven Spielberg's DP, was a DP of that film. So I had to go back 7 different times to, earn that credit. So and then after that, I did the MGM film. So those credits helped me when I went over to PM and auditioned over there. And it's the same thing. You get your sides, you get the script. If you're lucky enough, you get the full script where you can actually read it before you go in. Usually it's just the sides.
Yeah.
And so you go in and you audition and then you have a callback. So it was just an audition process and I got the part. So it
Wonderful.
was fun. I do remember the TV series.
Yeah.
I was driving down Mulholland Drive up here in LA, and I get a phone call from my agent, and they said PM is offering you the contract role on their new TV series. It's an action TV series.
Yeah.
I thought, oh, I love these guys. I know they have good taste. Yes, for sure. I want to do it. And then I hung up. And I went, I made it. That was it. I did not have to audition. They called me and made me an offer. So when you get to that point where people are calling you and making you offers, they know your work and they trust you. It's a real trust factor that, especially when you're shooting so fast and
Yeah.
doing your own stunts, they have to know not only are you good at what you do, but you're going to show up on set and you're not going to be a prima donna.
Of course, of course. So when you were auditioning for Last Man Standing, was it for the role of Annabella, or did you audition for sort of multiple roles?
No,
Or was
it
it
was
always
Annabella.
it was
Yeah, for
always
the
for that
wife.
main cast?
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I think what's really interesting about Last Man Standing, and I think this happens quite a few times throughout PM because they do like to, I think, flip expectations occasionally, is that you're not a damsel in distress role. You're not just a
No.
wife of the hero role. You become very part of the action.
Yes.
And we love that as action fans. I think we often get labeled as a certain type of person, and we're not at all. We love when action gets everyone involved and everyone kind of gets a chance to do it. So those parts of the script, was that something that was already in there and kind of drew you to the role? Was that something you brought along with you? Was that something that was kind of workshopped on set, or was it just listen, we want someone who's okay to do action, running, fighting,
Yeah.
jumping, shooting, all that stuff.
It was the latter, what you just said. It was already in the script. And I was a competitive gymnast growing up. So I worked out all the time. So I loved doing my own stunts. And I remember on one of the sets, you remember the big explosion
Yes.
from the barn? So, and we had to play it cool. It was like, oh, there goes a big blow up. Okay.
Yeah.
So, and then I was the detective. I know I'm flip-flopping back and forth from the TV series and this, but the TV series, I actually had a lot more action in the sense I was a detective.
Yeah.
At the end, I was done. I was killed, right? But they had put squibs all over me, and it was really, I mean, everything was very safe. The prop master was there showing me everything, but I was shot like 7 times.
Oh,
And
wow. Yeah.
so that was a really good action, and it was the first time I ever did that type of action in a flick.
Yeah.
And it was fun because, of course, I was able to get up and walk away without going to the hospital. So it was,
Yeah.
and so I with PM Entertainment, with Joseph and Rick, I think they really respected their female actresses.
Mm-hmm.
And again, the trust factor is going to come in the sense of they can also talk intelligence. They can still look very attractive. But guess what? They can run and they can fight with the best of them.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think that's what we love about Last Man Standing, because you kind of get embroiled in the action. You work closely with Jeff Wincott in Last Man Standing.
Yeah.
And
My husband,
your husband, yeah, in the
my
movie.
pretend husband.
Yes, your pretend husband. And I'm trying to think, was it Jeff's first movie with PM as well? I know he did a few. I think it was his first movie. But how was it working with Jeff? And obviously you're in the whole movie with him.
Yeah.
You have lots of scenes with him, action scenes, emotional scenes.
Yeah, we had a love scene.
Yeah, a love scene. So what was it like in general working with Jeff?
Wonderful. I mean, I could never say anything wrong about him. He is just a giving actor. He's very strong, excellent with his action, very caring. In the love scene, love scenes aren't as sexy as everybody thinks it is. It's very laid out. The lighting has there. It's a close set. The director will go, okay, we're going to do this shot. So run your hand down this way over the thigh. Let's make sure the light is hitting the knee correct. I mean, it's so technical. And the actors are there and very caring and loving. And that's who he was. And it shows in his work too, I believe. I mean, what do you think?
Definitely.
Can't you see that he's a caring actor? I mean, like, I've been really blessed, lucky that the people that I have worked with, and some have gone on to become really big names. I sometimes call myself the lucky rabbit foot. If you work with me, you'll probably go on and become a huge success. And I'm still waiting for my big break. But just a very caring actors in my whole rainbow of work. I've never worked with a drama queen or king or someone that slams the door and won't leave their trailer or demands that there's no cables across the walkway or they'd only get green M&Ms. I mean, like some of the stuff is just ridiculous. But I've been lucky not to experience that.
I feel like the way PM made films, quickly on a smaller budget and with a loyal crew around them, I don't know how you would have time to be dramatic or pissy in that kind of scenario, because Joseph would probably have just kicked you off.
You'd be out. You'd be gone. Next. But there was a couple times where I was like, especially as the detective, I was like, can we do another take? No, that was great. Awesome. Okay.
Well, that's what I was going to say about Jeff when you were saying about him. Can I tell on screen? Yes, I can. And what I love about Jeff is that obviously he does have this incredible athleticism and martial arts ability and other things that he shows on screen. But he's an actor first, and it's an unusual mix in action movies, especially martial arts action movies, because in general they tend to be gymnast or martial artist or action people first, and then actors second.
And, Jeff seems to come out of the acting school first. And I think that he is able to so effortlessly, for an action hero star that he was at the time, to go between the intensity he needed to be, the quote unquote badass or whatever, and the emotion that he needed to be a loving husband and a someone who cared about you and cared about, the people he had to save and so on. So I think, yes, he does bring that across on screen. And the both of you, the chemistry, the realism between husband and wife, both in the earlier scenes and the later action scenes. There's a great bit where you come up the stairs and you knock out a hench guy. I think he's going into the club and he says, like,
we're at the club. I was thinking about the club. I remember shooting in there and everything was real dark. And it was all choreographed and worked out. I remember that. Thank you.
Yes. Well, you come up the stairs. He tells you to stay in the car, I think. And you're like, I'm not staying in the car. Yeah. And you're coming up the stairs behind a henchman who's about to hit him. Yeah. And you hit the henchman and knock him down the stairs. And Jeff gives you this like sly smile that is so perfect. He gives you this smile to say, oh, you're okay. Why did I ever tell you to stay in the car?
Come on, honey.
He says everything, though, with that one look. And it's he's so proud of you and finds it funny at the same time. Like, it's a wonderful moment. And then you get to both like kick ass in the club. It's fantastic.
That's it. I remember that. And I remember being outside, and I can't remember where we were shooting, somewhere in Sunland or where it was like desert. And we had all the bottles. Do you remember that?
Yeah, so that's the middle section where he kind of takes you out to the desert to train you to shoot.
Yeah, yes. He was training me to shoot. And that was fun. That was
And had you handled firearms before? Were you used to do that?
Well, I'm from Mississippi, honey. I grew up in the South. Your daddy teaches you how to shoot a gun right away.
Sure, of course.
But it's been a long time since I had a firearm. When all the acting came to a stop, when I had my baby, who's now all grown up and doing her own thing, we're very proud of her. I, in the meantime, had started a book company where I wrote 32 booklets, all geared towards law enforcement. So it's all educational. I've since sold the company. I sold it to my business partner. But I was around all the cops, all the deputies, the sheriffs, the chiefs, and when they would have these conferences where we'd go and show everybody our books, they would have these stimulations where like real cops will go up and they practice to shoot. And it was just a demo. They'd let me go up there and do it. Sometimes I was all right, sometimes not very good. You really don't want to I really don't like holding a gun. I don't. No. It scares me.
I can imagine.
Me. I'm not a real, I think if you're going to hold one, you better know how to use it. You better continue your training and not be afraid to use it. God forbid you need to. Otherwise,
of course,
get a dog. Yeah.
Yes.
So that's my you don't want me holding a gun. Let me put it that way. Only pretend.
Only pretend.
Yeah. And in Last Man Standing and the detective show. And I guess I did have a lot of firearms in my career. I ran a lot too. I was a good runner.
So obviously you follow Last Man Standing up with Rage. And in Rage, it's a complete
camera person, right?
Yes, it's a completely different role. And I mean, you're still, I think what's nice about it is your strength still comes across on screen and your humor still comes across on screen. And I think Kenneth Tiger starts off a little bit like, just shoot it and shut up, kid. He's got a lot of that kind of stuff. But by the end of it, the two of you are a real kind of team.
We're a team. Yeah. I think my name was Bobby in that.
Yes, Bobby, yes.
And Kenneth and I, that was our part of the movie. Obviously, he was the newscaster, the producer, whatever, and I was the camera person.
Yes.
Taking his orders. So we really got to work together a lot more in that picture than the other. So
yeah, because he's only in the underground for the beginning. I don't think you really interact with him at all.
No.
And then in the show, he had obviously played the chief of police for the whole run of the series. So,
Yeah. Well,
um,
yeah, that's right. He was. And I was only in the 2 episodes before it got canceled.
yeah, oh,
Yeah.
shame,
Oh,
such
wait,
a
I don't
shame.
want to blow the ending.
No, no, well, too late now. Paul's already done that. So,
Paul did that for us. That's right. Thanks, Paul.
yeah, exactly.
We
So
love you.
in Rage, obviously you took on a different role. Do you remember, was that because you had done Last Man Standing and Joseph and Rick kind of came to you and said, what do you want to do next, as they had done with other actors? Or was that again something you felt you wanted to keep working with them, so you had to audition again? Do you remember?
That's a good question, and quite frankly, maybe I did not have to audition for that. Maybe that was the first film that I was just offered. I'd have to really dig deep and look back on that.
Yeah.
But I do remember it was a very different role for me, a younger personality, kind of tomboyish, not as challenging as some other roles I've played.
Yeah.
It was fun, but I do like a little bit more of a challenge. But it sure was nice to get up there and work with the same crew and same people, and have a job to go to. It's tough being an actor.
Yeah, well, when I was talking to Jeff Speakman, he said one of the things he liked about PM was that they came and they were like, let's do 3 movies. It wasn't like, let's do one
Yeah.
movie and see. It was like, let's do 3 or 4 movies. And he said, while the pay wasn't as great as it might have
Yeah.
been if I'd gone off and done another film, as an actor, having that consistent work in the bank was
Yeah.
worth everything.
It was gold.
Yeah. And
Definitely.
did you feel like that was the same with you, where they sort of
I
said, let's
do.
do 2 or 3 things? Yeah.
Yeah, I do. But I never was as secure as maybe he was,
Hmm.
because I know that every gig you get, you do have to, still prove yourself and get up there. Maybe my name wasn't as big as his, and that probably was reasoning. So, yeah, I was thankful for every job I got, and I just adored them. I mean,
Yeah.
Joseph Joseph was more on set than Rick was. And so I really got to know him. I got to know Rick too. He would sometimes have parties at his house, or a rap party or something, where when he used to live out here in California. And we just always had fun. And he's a good family man, and so was Joseph. And they installed that kind of family film with their film company.
Yeah.
And
No, I mean, everyone we talked to worked on multiple films.
multiple
Yeah,
projects.
yeah, there was never a sort of, I mean, there were a couple of one and dones, but I mean, in general, they tried to keep that family around because it was their business model. It was,
Yeah, it's their
it
business model. Yeah.
kept everyone involved, kept everyone working. Um, so obviously, one of the things PM is known for are their big action sequences, their big car stunts, their big explosions, things like that.
Yeah.
Yes, in Last Man Standing, you're involved very, you're in and amongst those sequences, and then in Rage, in the last sequence, you are, although you're not involved in the action of it, you do get to witness sort of the big mall fight and mall action sequence with Gary Daniels and the FBI guys and all that kind of smashing up the mall. Do you remember witnessing that, or were you offset at that point?
Inside the mall.
Yes.
Um, I vaguely remember that, but I think that I was pretty much already,
Already done. Okay.
yeah, because that was big action, and they're going to focus on that.
Yeah.
Seems
But
like
do
I
you
got
remember
a
sort of,
clip of it. As Bobby, it seems like Kenneth and I went in there and got a clip of it,
yeah.
and that was it.
But can you talk just a little bit then about maybe from Last Man Standing would be better, just sort of how you observed or how you interacted kind of PM putting together a set piece? Were you like putting
Oh.
together an action set piece? Can you kind of talk a little bit about how they did that, or were you not really involved?
Not involved with the set pieces being put together, but of course I was the prop master was hands-on with me
Yeah.
whenever I was holding a firearm. And The guns, I remember everything being, you just go to your trailer or your tent, wherever. It wasn't that low budget. So
No.
we go to our trailer and then they would just come and get us when it was all
Okay.
set and ready to go. Can I tell you a funny story about
Please.
with the Roger Corman flick?
Yeah, we'd love that. Yeah.
Okay. So I was doing Dune Warriors.
Yes.
This is a long time ago. And we were shooting in the Philippines. So this is real, true guerrilla filmmaking.
Yeah.
And so I loved the Philippines, still do. We're down there and we're shooting at a concrete factory in the middle of the summer. And I had this long cape on and I had to run through these barrels. There was like 6 barrels. And the director said, he was Filipino director.
Cirio Santiago, right?
Thank you. Serious. I was thinking of his son, Christopher Santiago. I was like, no, that's his son, Sirio. So he's like, okay, Jill, I want you to just run through those barrels and we're gonna film it. I said, that's all you want me to do is just run through it? And he goes, yeah. So they set up the camera and everything, and I hit action. So I start running, and all of a sudden, as soon as I pass a barrel, boom, boom, all 6 of those barrels. I had never run so fast in my life. And when I got done with it, I said to Siri, I said, why didn't you tell me they were going to explode? He was like, oh, I was laughing. Well, I
Yeah.
wanted a real expression from you. I said, well, I guess you got it. And thank God I'm okay.
Yeah. No, and it's
It was gorilla.
it's funny you talk about that because I mean, obviously I'm a big fan of Roger Corman, big fan of
Oh, yeah.
PM, and I love the sort of run and gun style of filmmaking as well as the kind
Yeah.
of familial style of filmmaking. But it's interesting because even the slightest, I don't know, hint of any sort of stunt impropriety or whatever, any kind of set accident, set mistake, set whatever, these days would be completely
Oh,
not allowed. It would be triple
that's
checked, whatever, et cetera, et cetera. So it's always interesting to me to meet someone who kind of worked in those kind of guerrilla style films and just how, because you seemingly loved it. Like you
I
have
did. It was fun. It
yeah, you have a positive memory of it. So
was always a tomboy. And I remember Joseph telling me that he missed some of those days where they would just go out and do some guerrilla shooting and just a small crew with an actor and just really dig deep into it because they did get bigger. They kept growing and they were very successful film company, very successful for where they started and where they stopped.
yeah.
But he missed those really guerrilla marketing days. I remember him
Yeah.
telling me that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, their early days, their City Lights films and
City
some of
Lights.
their early PM films that were shot on 16 before they went up to 35 mil. Rick told me, oh, we never had any permits. We just went out and did whatever we wanted to do. And I'm thinking they blew up cars and flipped cars over. I mean, you couldn't do it
No,
in
you
this
can't do that now. You'd
world.
be dragged away. You cannot
Yeah.
do that now. So
But
you're right. You're right. We lived through a fun time, and I truly had fun.
yeah. And so the last thing, apart from it, we've obviously talked about the TV show then, but the thing that you did in between was the Underground with Jeff Fahey.
Oh, yeah.
And you were only in a couple of scenes. It's sort
Yeah,
of
I'm trying to remember it. Yeah. Was I the bank teller? No, that was
no,
right.
the bank teller is Last Man Standing.
Yeah, yeah.
No, in the Underground, what's interesting is, as I say, you're only in a couple of scenes,
Yeah.
and your role seems to simply be that you kind of fancy Jeff Fahey's detective, and he's having trouble with his wife. So you kind of think, well, wait, is something going to happen? But then nothing ever happens. And you're another detective in the precinct, and you help with a sting operation at the end a little bit. You're in the van and you're kind of helping them out.
That's
But
right.
but
That,
I was just interested because obviously you had done a big action role for them in
yeah.
Last Man Standing. You'd done a sort of similar sized role in Rage, but obviously less action. And then for Underground, you really just kind of probably came back, I don't know, day or two for shooting. You probably weren't there for very long based on the scenes you're in. Was
Based
that
on
just,
my memory.
yeah. Was that just to kind of
stay in the PM folder because
It
they
was
knew you and
probably a thank you,
yeah,
and again, I loved acting so much. I'm not saying that it's done for me. I've got a couple projects where my husband, I don't, do you remember The Sentinel?
the Sentinel, the Michael Winner movie.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
My
yeah, yeah.
husband wrote that novel, and he's a
Oh, okay,
superb
fantastic.
novelist. And I'm going to say a little thing real quick. He has his new novel coming out, 30 years in the making, and it's called The Circus of Satan, and it's
Okay,
pre-prohibition historical fiction. So we have that project, and then we have a project that I wrote, and we have a team already, and it's now we're getting down to it's interesting because we're talking about budgets the way that PM was able to make their big action flicks,
yeah,
get a lot out of their production value. So the one I wrote is an erotic thriller, turns and twisting. You don't know who's done it to the very end. So we're working on that project, and I'm going to have once it's up and going, I'll have a little part in it. I
nice.
started this when I was working with PM and Roger Corman. I started writing it then, and
Yeah,
I was to play the lead. But life happened, it went on the shelf, and I pulled it back out like 4 years ago when I sold my book company. And
yeah,
now we're doing this. So I'm really seeing it's interesting. Again, okay, the budgets, because I just had to do rewrites to fix the script so the budget will come down another mil. So
yeah.
in today's world, the money everything costs so much more. Again, when you think back when we made all these movies and the TV show and PM was rocking, I mean, they really got a lot for their money. The tax credits were here. It's just hopefully we'll get those back. And these lower budget films, they're coming back again.
Tubi, you can upload stuff to Tubi pretty easily.
Oh,
So
that's great. I did not know that. And
yeah, and
Tubi has some good stuff,
Tubi has all the
right?
old 80s, 90s, and
Yeah,
2000s video
it's
shop stuff. It has
fun.
all that stuff. And they might be, I mean, if your film is a genre film, an
Yeah.
erotic thriller genre film,
Oh, it is. Yeah.
that's right up there. Like I would be in contact with them because that is half their stuff is action stuff and half their stuff is sort of
It's
erotic
erotic.
thrillers from
Yeah.
the 90s, which
Yeah.
was another great genre that I don't want to be,
I
callous about it,
did.
but I miss it.
I did one. I know you're going to remember this show, Red Shoe Diary.
Yes, Red Shoe Diaries. Zalman King,
Yes,
who was a
Dylan.
softcore pioneer, I guess is
Well,
what
I
we'll say.
did one of those episodes, and
Okay,
you know that we shot it out in the desert. The actor I worked with was superb. I don't even know what happened to him, but it was really maybe I got lucky and got a good part. It was very psychological. My character had accidentally run over and killed a child, and I was
right.
hiding in the desert so that I wouldn't get arrested or anything. And this lone person coming through the desert, it sounds like one of their shows, right?
Yeah,
Comes to the house, and I try to help him because he gets hurt, and then he finds out about my history. So it's a real psychological twisting. It was not bad. I have really, yeah, but it did have a big, I think I did nudity in about three of my projects, and that was it.
yeah.
It's really good then. Nobody's
That's-
asking me now.
no, but again, I think it speaks to what I love is because you did a bunch of genre stuff.
Yeah, I
It
do.
it speaks to how you because I think there's two ways to do it. There's a way that makes it, and you can tell when you watch it, it just translates off the screen. There's ways where you watch something and you go, that actress really didn't want to do that.
Yeah.
And then there's other ways you can watch it where you're owning it. You're owning the scene. You're owning. I'm a huge Pam Grier fan, and she talks about nudity a lot and sort of being strong about it and feminist about it and
Yeah.
not that you have to necessarily instill politics on everything, but I'm just saying there are ways to do it, I think, where you're empowered and it's safe and it's
Yes.
erotic and it's beautiful.
And you
That's
own it. You actually, I love
yeah,
what you said about that. If you're going to take a role, they're going to be up front and you're going to see it's in there. And yes, you can talk to the director. Yes, you can have a very close set, no still photography. You could do all of that.
yeah.
But you're right. If you take that part, you own it. You better own it. And
Yeah, and that's what we loved about Last Man Standing.
yeah,
You do everything in that movie. Like I say, you have a
thank-
dramatic scene, a love
yeah,
scene, an action scene, or whatever, and you own all of it. Your strength, your femininity, and the strength within your femininity comes out in that movie.
thank you.
Genuinely.
Tell Joseph it's time to get all of us actors back out there to do it again. Wouldn't that
I,
be fun?
it would be amazing. I think talking to him, I reminded him that he did more than what he thought he did. I
He
think,
really did.
yeah,
He really, now you'll make me cry
yeah,
because he was far and few in between.
yeah,
And and Roger too. I
yeah,
mean, both of them, Joseph really loved filmmaking
yeah.
and he did treat us like family. And it was a very special time, and I was blessed to really experience so much when I was in it hardcore, in the acting world. I never really thought about how much I had accomplished for a little girl from Mississippi,
Yeah.
not knowing a single person in Hollywood and working my butt off. I studied with one of the most wonderful acting teachers, Harry Master George, who has since passed away, but he taught up into his late 90s. Ray Liotta was in my class, Daryl Hannah was in there, tons of TV people, Jennifer Grey. We I mean, we all worked so hard, and Ray Liotta, who was a superstar at that time, rest his soul, he would still come back and work out in the acting class. So as an actor, you never really stop, perf- working on your craft. And Joseph, I think, really appreciated all of his actors.
Definitely. I think so. The way he talks about it, I definitely think so. And Jillian, thanks so much for your
You're
time today.
welcome.
Um,
I love your voice too, by
oh,
the way.
thank you very much. Thank you. Yeah. I've actually been in the States about 18 years, but I've still got a bit of the English
A
accent.
little bit. A little bit.
Yeah. A little bit. It's still happening.
Not bad. It's
Um,
very nice.
but again, I just want to say, I mean, obviously, thank you so much for your time today. This conversation has been great. But also just to let you know, as I love to do with people who may think that, as I said, you did a bunch of genre films, you had a great time, but maybe you think they've been, I don't know, consigned to straight to video somewhere or whatever. There are people out there who see the skill, the artistry, the passion, the excitement, the silliness, the love, the fun, whatever, the weirdness in these movies and don't dismiss them.
No.
And so, and you may know that already. I may be, I don't know if I'm telling you
Well,
something you already know, but I feel that way about them. And I want to say thank you for being a part of so
uh,
many of the great ones.
thank you. I really have had so much fun and so lucky and so blessed. And what I was going to wrap up about when I was in the depth of it, it's kind of like when you're really young and you look at yourself in the mirror and you go, "Oh, I have this funny looking hair or I'm awkward looking." And then about 10 years later you go, "Hey, I was a pretty cool looking kid." I
Yeah,
until you get out of and then you can reflect back. I can look back at my acting and go, "Yeah, I did do a lot. I really
yeah,
got to travel the world. I got to have a lot of fun, and it's not over yet." And
no, definitely not.
and yay for the action flicks. These great budgets, and there's another Rick and there's another Joseph, not quite like them, but there are more people like your indie friends.
Oh yeah, I mean, there are
They're still
independent
there.
filmmaking pockets in this country, all over the place. There are conventions that happen that they themselves organize. There are screenings, everything like that. It's still very much alive and vibrant. And the more we can promote it, the better. So, Jillian, when you...
Wait, Rick, do you
Yeah.
remember Anthony, who I worked with on Progeny? Do you know
Yes.
the Sharknado films?
Yes, Sharknado, yeah.
He's directed all of those.
Oh, wow. Oh, wonderful. Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah.
With, what, The Asylum, right? Wasn't that the production company? Yeah.
Yes,
And
The
they did all
Asylum.
the Sci-Fi
Yes,
Channel films.
yes.
Yeah.
So there's still lots of people doing it. So let's keep rock and rolling and keep growing. Look at my husband's name. You can see it. It's Jeffrey Convitz, Konvitz. His new book, 30 Years in the Making, is called The Circus of Satan.
Okay.
And it's
And that's...
ordered right now on through Amazon. But he's got like 30 interviews lined up, and he's been asked to be like the center for, anyway, it's a lot of stuff going on. Releasing a
Great.
book is not easy.
No, I see it now on Amazon, The Circus of Satan. I found it here. Yeah, okay, fantastic. And you want to make that into a film as well, or?
Yeah, our ultimate goal is that it will become a miniseries.
Oh, lovely.
It's a big read. It's
Wonderful.
Yeah. So keep an eye on that. We'll stay in touch.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Jill, for your time today.
You're so welcome. It was a pleasure. We'll talk later, okay?
Wasn't that fantastic? Another great conversation there. And another advert, and then you will hear from Spiro Razatos.
I actually started on Last Man Standing. That's the first PM I did. Did Joseph tell you how I got the show, the craziness of it?
No, he didn't actually. No, I was interested how you got that.
So this was pretty, I mean, obviously there's been a few turning points in my career that have pretty much defined my career. From, in the early days it was Joseph and Lustig, and then and then it got into Justin Lin and the Russo brothers.
Yeah.
So what happened with PM is, I guess they were doing a movie in Vegas, and they had the guys low budget, everything was down and dirty, and they hired a stunt guy, Bob Brown, who was the double for the guy on Terminator, the bad guy, I forget the guy.
Robert Patrick.
And they hired him because I think he was in the movie, whatever. So that was like their first taste of the big Hollywood, and they hired him only as a stunt guy. But I guess he helped out or whatever. And Joseph said, you know what? I need to take my movies to another level. So he said to Bob Brown, hey, will you, do our next movie? We want to go to a next level and, to our movies. And he said, listen, I can't do it, but the right guy for you, perfect guy is Spiro. So it was really nice of him to recommend me. So Joseph calls me in and we make a deal. Obviously I had to adjust because their budget. And I did a pay or play with them because that's one thing I always do. Because if I'm going to not do other jobs, they got to at least do a pay or play. So the big sequence that I shot first was still one of my favorites, was when the armored car going through the freeway, the guy rolling out the back and dragging him on the freeway. And, it was a big thing. Motorcycles jumping, cars flipping, cannons. I mean, you name it.
Yeah.
It was a big sequence. And so I was shooting it. And I remember I felt good about it. I never get confident or excited, but I didn't feel there was a problem in what I was doing. I felt I was doing what I always do. And I remember Joseph wasn't like excited. He just didn't say much. And then after I finished the sequence, what I heard happen behind the scenes before he called me into his office was, I guess he didn't understand my dailies and he thought that I wasn't getting the stuff that he was hoping he'd get. So he went to the editor and said, listen, Spiro stuff is not working. It's this. He goes, pull out all footage from other movies and put together a sequence to make this work. And the editor goes, wait a minute. He goes, give me a chance with Spiro stuff. I see stuff that's working. And then Joseph goes, no. It's not. It's not going to work. Find footage from old movies of ours and put a sequence together. And so he told that to the editor, and two things happened. The editor, thank God for me, did not listen to Joseph and decided he would make a crack at editing the sequence. Okay?
Yeah.
So he didn't listen to Joey, and he edited it with just the footage I shot. But in the meantime, Joseph calls me into his office, and because he was sincere, he said to me, "Listen, I don't, I don't think I got what I was hoping to get, for the money I spent, because he spent more than he's ever spent to hire me, but I also, took less than I normally do, but it was a give." And he just said, "You know what? There's not big action. I'm going to let you go and have somebody else that I could afford finish the movie." Now, I had a pay or play, so I could have said to Joseph, "Hey, Joseph, you still got to pay me because I didn't take any other show," but I didn't. I felt bad, and I just believed he was sincere, and I just couldn't understand why he felt that way, and walked away without asking for the rest of my money. And in the meantime, the editor cut the sequence, and obviously, once everybody saw it, they told Joseph how much, the show's gone to another level, this, and I guess it was very successful. And so then the rest is history, I've been best friends with him and done all of his movies since then. He tried one other time to do the same thing, but it never worked because, he just, there's been some, a couple funny stories where he's tried to stop me from shooting a stunt, and then I had to do it, sneak it and all that, and he's probably told you some of those. But we've had a pretty crazy and wonderful relationship. But yeah, so he fired me, and then all of a sudden they cut it, and then I've done every movie since then of his and been his friend for 30-something years now, whatever it's been.
So your first big sequence with PM Entertainment that actually ended up in the movie was the armored car sequence, the sort of the second car
on
chase.
The Last Man Standing.
In Last Man Standing. Yep. Yeah.
It was kind of like the vault. It's kind of like the vault sequence, It's been, it's kind of like a memorable sequence in their sequences. And yeah, it was my very first sequence with them.
And you've got Jeff Wincott on the motorbike chasing the armored car and people firing off the back of the car and everything like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you see the guy rolling? Do you see the guy rolling out the back and the motorcycle? And,
yeah.
That's all real. It's all that stuff is real.
So let's go through some of our favorite scenes of the movie then. So we start off with, and as I say, PM Entertainment always tried to make sure, especially with their bigger budget action stuff, to start off with a set piece, end with a set piece, but then make sure you got like 2 or 3 in the middle as well. And like you say, this film hits the ground running. There's we start off with a bank robbery. And in fact, they almost fake you out because that opening bank robbery, while there is some action in it and he's hitting people with a baton and someone else is hitting people or shooting at people or whatever, and there is some action in that opening sequence, when it kind of fades at the end of the bank robbery, you kind of go, oh, that's not a normal big PM Entertainment opening sequence.
Yeah, it feels a bit like, when's Point Break around this time? It has a kind of a
yes,
because Point Break's got to be early 90s, right?
Yes,
93, 94 maybe. So I'm wondering, it had that kind of gang walk into a bank, take total control.
Point Break is 91.
So there we go. So it's out there in the world of if you're talking about bank robbery movies,
yes,
it's Point Break at this, at that stage in cinema. So it has that kind of feeling of gang with a plan, make something happen in a bank. It doesn't need to have loads of explosions for it to be sort of exciting and intriiguing, I guess.
Right. And of course, Christopher Nolan would rip this off years later.
Definitely he did.
With
that's what I thought.
Batman opening, the Dark Knight opening.
Yeah.
With the Joker robbing the bank. I mean, the Joker's
wearing basically the same scene.
Listen, the Joker's wearing a big purple suit. So is Snake Johnson. What's his name? Snake Underwood. Snake Johnson. Basically, his name is Penis. No, Snake Underwood. So he's robbing it in a purple thing.
Yeah.
He laughs maniacally like the Joker does.
Yep.
He has ridiculous hair like the Joker does.
Yeah.
I'm listen.
It's basically the same movie.
Christopher Nolan watched this.
Yeah, I know. And absolutely he did.
Yes.
There's no doubt in my mind. There's no doubt in my mind.
And the funny thing is, I'd rather watch this movie. Anyway, so it starts off, you're like, oh, okay, I was expecting a little more out of an opening PM Entertainment sequence, but fine. Cut to Wincott in one of his many
pastel blazers.
Yellow, I believe.
Yes, yellow, showing up with Banks to the Hyatt Regency. And,
with again a weird comic character.
Yeah, a weird comic character
of like talking them all the way through from the moment that they arrive, all the way through the corridor, up in the elevator,
explaining everything,
like complaining about this guest and how it works and the value of the room, and it's like nice because it's supposed to be a background noise,
yes,
of like irritating,
but it's
at the
giving
same time,
you information.
But they're not angry, they're not irritated with him.
No,
it's nice. It's nice.
Well. So I call that the Larry Cohen effect, which is that whenever you watch a Larry Cohen movie, as B-movie as it is, as Grindhouse as it is, he's managed to give every character, even the minor characters,
that's
something
true.
to do.
Yeah.
And I feel like Joe especially, but I see this with Jacobson Hart and some of the other writers who work on PM. They try and give everyone something to sort of be a character. And this guy, this kind of... like you say, kind of squeaky voice, slightly effeminate, but like hotel worker who's just kind of nagging the cops about this guy. Whoa, this was normally it's $150 a night. You won't believe what the suite is. It's like $400 a night, and blah blah blah. He's got all this stuff going on. You're like, why are they in a hotel? Why is there two cops? Whatever. Well, they're going up because Snake Underwood is, like you say, is like paying off some guy who's very upset that he no longer
he's
gets
not getting his 50%
cut. He gets a 5% cut.
Of what, though? I don't understand what he does that deserves 50% of any kind of...
Right.
Because it's weird, because it seems like he's the boss. And Snake, initially, as the scene happens, you think he's the boss and Snake Underwood works for him.
Yeah.
But then it becomes apparent that Snake Underwood is much more powerful than him. And the guy's just lucky to get out of there alive, which he doesn't.
Like the Joker, to keep making the Christopher Nolan comparison, Snake Underwood will do what...
Dude, can I just say, I do think you need to be a bit more original. You know what I mean? I think the Last Man Standing, Dark Knight comparisons have frankly been done to death. You know what I mean? Like, I really feel like... Christopher Nolan and Joseph Murray, like, we know they're the same.
Yeah,
right? we know they make the same. We know that Nolan rips off Mayhe, right?
I would so.
I just think you just need to move on to like greener. You've got to find fresh things to talk about.
No, true.
You know what I mean?
But we also, I feel like the hotel scene, it's a bit true romancy. And I do know from a movie that PM make a couple of years after this called Pure Danger with C. Thomas Howell, which is very kind of true romancy. That clearly that early Tarantino, Rodriguez sort of action, thriller, drama, crime movies that were very prevalent around this time in the 90s, Pulp Fiction and stuff. They do loom large in the background of PM Entertainment films in the sense that they do try and... they start to use the F word a little more. They start to have like more flamboyant characters.
Yeah.
There starts to be stuff in PM films that are trying to capture a little bit of that Pulp Fiction vibe. And there's definitely a true romance vibe to the hotel shootout in this movie. But in true PM fashion, they take something that is the climax to another movie and simply make it their opening sequence.
Yeah.
So let's talk... The diving, the constant like people diving behind stuff is an absolute joy.
My favorite is when
he throws himself,
when Jeff throws himself through a mirror. Before he does it, looks just like a mirror on a wall.
Yeah.
And he throws himself through the mirror through the. Well, first of all, who puts just a mirror between sections
hotel.
of like?
It doesn't speak well of the Hyatt Regency, does it?
It's like, wait, hang on. So you're just going to put a mirror there?
Yeah.
I mean, it's great. It's just Jeff's confidence in like, it's probably not a wall there.
Yeah.
Let's just go for it.
Yeah.
Probably not a wall.
What is proved in this movie, probably more than anything else, is what I've said before on the show, which is that glass has no purchase in PM Entertainment. It has no solidity. It has no, normally, like, yes, you can punch through a plane of glass, but it's not easy, right? Like, you really have to...
Yeah, and it would cause you a lot of damage.
Right. People walk through glass.
See, I think that like Jeff's cop character, like his last words, are definitely going to be, it's probably not a wall.
Probably not a wall.
Probably not a wall.
Probably not a wall.
Probably not a wall behind that. Behind that mirror.
Also, what if he smashed through the mirror and it actually led to the outside world? Like the mirror
was 18
really
floors up.
A window, and he was 18 floors up.
Yeah, that would be a short movie. But you're right. There was a lot of great diving. There's a lot of very bad aim.
Yes.
Which I enjoy as well. I do enjoy a good... I'm 8 feet away. I'm holding a machine gun. I'm literally raking it side to side, and
Yes.
you're running away from me in
Running.
a straight line.
Yeah.
I haven't hit you.
Then, though, what follows? The chase through the hotel.
It's really good.
It's one of my favorite.
Yeah,
PM
it's really,
sequences.
really good. Yeah.
But it's really, really good for not for necessarily the chasing and the fighting. It's really good for like all the other people.
Yeah.
That they involve.
Because
Like,
Errol Flynn keeps like grabbing people and then throwing
Just
them
throwing
at
them out of
Jeff.
the way, yes.
And then Jeff just like pushes them down. There's no like Jeff will occasionally throw people out of the way.
throw
as
people
well.
out of the way. At one point, does it in the kitchen bit when they're running through and he's moving all the bread trays out in his way and stuff. At one point, I feel like he grabs like a busboy or a maitre d' or something and like throws him over to Jeff's thing. And when he hits Jeff just like shoves him into a wall.
Yeah.
Like this poor bastard. Like, and Jeff is a cop. Like his first instinct, yes, I'm going to get the bad guy, but his first instinct should be, I'm not going to hurt
His
this
first instinct is
civilian.
probably like the fact he didn't break the guy's neck.
Yes.
Is probably he should consider himself lucky.
well, I
But
don't
Jeff's
know.
Like, they could be working together.
He could have been an
For
evil,
all I know.
Could have been an evil busboy.
Yeah, he could have been an evil boss. A lot of bread trays in that kitchen.
Oh man, that was my favorite scene. At one point, they run just through planes.
There's like 3 planes of glass.
Yeah,
right?
just panes of glass,
was really
just
good.
standing in a hotel
was
foyer.
really good.
And the thing is that while you know it's obviously set up as breakaway glass for them to like fall through and give just a little bit of production value.
Mm-hmm.
Very often, and they do this in several sequences. There's sequences in malls very often that just have random glass panes that they can fall. Airports are great for like random glass
Definitely.
panes. And even at the final sequence in this at the subway station, lots of random. I feel like we do walk through areas sometimes, and there are just like random panes of glass or like partitions for things. And I mean, not maybe not as blatant.
Maybe because
as the
every
PM.
urban planner
Yeah.
has seen Last Man Standing. But you know what? We need more glass.
We need more glass.
More inexplicable glass.
for people to be thrown through.
Yeah.
So this hotel chase has just about a bit of everything, and I'm a big fan of it. And then like I said, PM always does this. Right at the end of the action sequence, just when you think, okay, great, he's caught the bad guy, he's handcuffing him. We're done with the running, the gunning, the shooting, the whatever. No. There's got to be
In fact,
one little button on
one
the
of the
action
things I really, really like is when Jeff was holding Errol's hand to like handcuff him, he's like, give me your other hand. And that's the point where I was going, like, he should just like hit him and run away. He's only got one hand.
Yeah.
And that's a point when he headbutts him and runs away. And I thought, hooray for the criminal for doing the thing that I didn't expect him to do because that wouldn't be narratively convenient.
Right.
But instead, they knew what they were looking at and they knew what was happening and they leaned into it, which I just thought that was super cool. So I really like that he headbutted him and ran away. It's
And
like
then
all criminals at the point when the cop's like gloating over having caught him should headbutt him and then run away.
Yeah, exactly.
Brilliant
And
idea.
especially with that hair, you've got a protected
Absolutely.
helmet right there.
Absolutely, yeah.
Because if you're Jeff and that hair comes at you, you're
don't know what to do.
blindsided.
Yeah,
you don't know what's
what to do.
happening.
Yeah, you don't know
You've
what's
just
going
got a
on.
silver
Yeah.
wash in front of you, and you're. Well, anyway, they end up going out a window and crashing down into the pool below because they've seen Lethal Weapon 2. I mean, that's what it is, right?
Yeah, I would seem so. Yeah.
Isn't it Lethal Weapon 2 where they crash out of a window and fall into a pool below?
I can't remember.
With
I mean,
Joe Pesci, I think.
That's
The
yeah.
Joe
I think
Pesci
you're right.
sequence in Lethal
Yeah,
Weapon,
yeah, I
I
think
think.
you're right. Yeah,
but
yeah.
either way, it's fantastic. They end up in the swimming pool. I love the other thing that Joe is great at doing, just whipping in a little bit of comedy. The kids in the pool, wonderful touch. It's not an empty pool; like there were just kids there.
And they like point and say, "Whoa, look at that!"
Should we get out the way?
I
No,
like this.
fuck.
Like,
I think we'll just stay in the
we
pool.
better make sure that people are watching this sequence because it took us a lot to throw people out of a window into a
Yeah.
pool. So they put some characters in there to point at the action to go, "Oh, look at that!" So I know we're watching the film.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm looking at what you're putting on the screen. You don't need to have characters say, "Oh, look at that."
No, you
know
do.
what I mean?
You do though. You do need characters to react to
You know,
what's happening.
I suppose people do run on at the bottom of like the screen in Godzilla movies and point up and go, "Oh my god!" and point at the monster. It's like, I know it's a monster. I can see it.
Yeah, it's all good.
Yeah.
Then we've got as we spoke about earlier, the chase after they rob his wife's bank. That is
With the
phenomenal.
motorbike, that's a really good one.
So he knocks.
Oh, the car and the thing jumping over with the big explosion. As
Yeah, he
comes,
knocks
that's
a
really
guy off a Triumph bike, stealing his sunglasses, and as if it wasn't, an insult enough
to steal a man's motorbike. He adds insult to injury or injury to insult. Either way, it doesn't matter. He steals his aviator shades and puts them on because he's like, well, if I'm riding a motorbike in this action sequence, I've got to look badass.
Yeah.
So I need some aviator shades.
Well, I guess you do
Stat.
need I guess you do. If you're riding a bike at speed on the freeway, you probably do need glasses. Or going to get bugs in your eye.
No, I understandably, but also.
No, I just like the Jeff thinking. I know I'm about to chase after a bank robber here.
Yes.
But I need to be mindful of bugs in the eye.
Yeah.
So I better nick this bloke's sunglasses as well as his bike.
So
If that makes the stunt man less difficult to discern from me, so much the better.
But it's often like with all the car carnage and explosions and chases and everything else that's in the movie, I still think one of the most impressive stunts that we see full on is the guy leaping from the motorbike into the back
that was
door
super cool.
of the.
That was super cool.
What is it? It's like an
armored truck. Isn't it?
Armored
yeah, it's
secure
like an armored
truck.
truck.
Yeah.
You're right, because when you're watching it, again, I suspect this is one of the benefits of being cavalier about health and safety.
Yeah.
Is like, well, we've got a stunt. We're going to have a bloke drive a motorbike up to the back of the truck, or rather, from what I've heard from the podcast, the stunt man had an idea of,
Yes.
I think I can get a guy to ride a motorcycle up to the back of a truck and jump into it.
Yeah.
Can we work that into the movie?
Yeah.
And so when you see it, you're aware it's really happening. It's not trick photography. It's not like a series of clever cuts. It's like you watch him, like the camera's there, where that's obviously the bike riding up to the back of it and the guy jumping in. And who knows what the hell actually happens after that. But that's definitely what you're seeing really happen.
Yeah,
It's really impressive.
The only awkward cuts you get is the cutaways to Jeff to make. Because you're aware.
Oh yeah.
You know, this is the.
Yeah, he's obviously on a bike on the truck.
Right. It's the era of stuntmen. So instead of doing, and I think we have a benefit here because we grew up watching Bond films, right?
Right.
And especially the Roger Moore era, which was sort of our era growing up, and especially as he got older, it was definitely like, well, Roger's going back to his trailer to smoke an enormous cigar with Michael Caine. And or someone else, and or Michael Winner or whatever. Meanwhile, a much slimmer, fitter person who looks nothing like Roger Moore in a bad toupee trying to look like Roger Moore is going to do all the stunts.
Right.
And there was a point, and again, I think this helped with sort of the suspension of disbelief watching those movies. You knew there was a part of your brain that went, oh, it's a stunt guy, but you also just was like, well, I'm watching James Bond. You know what I mean? Like you could, to some extent,
you could admire the stunt,
right,
almost separate from the narrative,
right. But you also didn't have to. Yes, you might jokingly or ironically point out the stuntman, but ultimately, when you were watching the movie, you were just invested in the action sequence.
Yeah.
And I feel like there are moments in this movie where you need to have those goggles on because it's obvious it's not Wincott.
Yeah. Sometimes you need to have the stolen sunglasses on.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree.
But no, that's probably the most impressive stunt in the whole thing.
Yeah, agreed.
Oh, no. Second most impressive stunt is when he is hanging off the back of the armored vehicle on the sacks of money
trousers.
and the chains with his ripped up, tattered trousers.
See, I found that very difficult to watch because all I was thinking was his testicles are getting a hell of a battering.
Right, because he's sliding along the ground,
on his
basically
knob.
on his thighs and groin.
Yeah.
Like he's not on his, there's bits where he's on his knees that I'm like, oh, even with knee pads, that's probably not comfortable. But there was one bit where he was just bouncing along on his knob.
Yeah, I was just like, he's gonna have no skin left.
Skin left on his arm. But then what about, and again, I don't think this was planned, but like as the truck turns, he slams into like that concrete.
He does.
What are they called? They're not bollards, but like the concrete partitions on the highway. He slams into one of those, and I was like, wow. It's such a, I get such a visceral reaction for watching PM because you know some dude is just doing it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like the explosions, right? When they were like the explosion in the barn, and you can see it's them, it's the actors actually running away.
Yeah.
And you can tell like, that's really an explosion. They really just blow up that barn, and those really are the actors running away from it. And there is something to be said for the connection with the reality of that versus even a bigger explosion if it's CGI's and not real. It's just not really invested in it, like you're saying. It's better. It's more.
Well, I like, for example, that as Jeff runs away, regular human Jeff can't help look behind him to like watch how cool the explosion is. Because normally if you were running away from an explosion, you just be, fuck, like you would just be booking it. But you know, because it's all in slow motion. You see Jeff Wincott running away, and then he looks behind him, and he doesn't, you know, he still turns around and maintains like cool, intense Wincott.
Yeah.
But there's a bit of his brain that's smiling and like, I'm fucking running away from this explosion.
It's very, very cool.
So we have that sequence. We have the barn explosion. I think we should talk a little bit about Jillian McWhirter because she is in a few PM Entertainment films.
This is Norris's daughter, right?
Well, explain who Norris McWhirter is so people get the joke.
Well, I believe Norris McWhirter was the official representative from the Guinness Book of World Records on the television show when we were kids, Record Breakers.
But wasn't Norris McWhirter, like, didn't he do the Guinness Book of Records? Like, wasn't that he wasn't just a host on a TV show, wasn't he?
He wasn't, I'm saying he was like the representative of the Guinness Book of Records.
Right. So he was like the Guinness Book of Records. I thought he was like the buck
I don't know
stops
that he
with
was like...
He's like, how many bees?
Stops with Norris.
How many bees on that guy's face? Call in Norris McWhirter.
Call in McWhirter. It's
many
not
pegs?
official until Norris gives the okay.
Who's this comedian? Is it Bill Bailey? The only way you win that is by having a bigger face. What is that? What is?
I don't know.
Who is that stand? Oh, there's a stand-up. I think it's Bill Bailey, but he's talking about Guinness Book of Records, and he's like, you know, you get these silly ones like how many pegs on a face. Well, the only way to win that is by having a bigger face. I forget who that is, but the wonderful Jillian McWhirter. Who's not been in a ton of stuff. She only has 27 credits to her name, 20 as an actor. But she is in several PM films. She is in Last Man Standing. Right. She is in Rage, which we've covered previously with Gary Daniels. She is also in The Underground, which was another one that I was
we were talking about maybe covering that one.
Jeff Fahey one. But she also is in a bunch of other things tangentially linked. So she is in Blood Fist 7 and Blood Fist 8, which are Don the Dragon Wilson movies, a series of movies that he made for Roger Corman around the same time that he was working with PM Entertainment. So there is that connection. Also, we have been referring to PM as sort of the action Roger Corman school in the way that kind of people trained on the job. Mm-hmm. So McWhirter dances around a lot of B-movie action in the 90s, and good for her. What do we think of McWhirter? Because I think there's she's in an episode of their TV show LA Heat as well. Oh. So she did a few things with PM McWhirter. I'm actually a fan of McWhirter.
I think McWhirter's got it going on.
She's in a movie with Arnold Vosloo as well, which is he's also been in PM Entertainment films.
Of course he is.
Of course he is. Vosloo screams PM Entertainment. So, yeah, Jillian McWhirter. What's really interesting about this film, especially, is that McWhirter is along for the ride throughout the movie. So normally, any movie in which there's like a hotshot cop that goes on the edge, the wife either dies or is jettisoned off after an opening scene with the kids, only occasionally to show up on a phone call being like, you know, when are you coming home or whatever, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So what's interesting about this is she is called upon to like go into the fray. So, but also...
she's very good.
Right. But also there are a couple of scenes of nudity with her. There's a sex scene right towards the beginning, and there is nudity later. But not only that, but then she's running, she's gunning, she's shooting people, she's driving in the car fast. She's at one point, and this is another thing that I love about PM, because I want to see this more than I want to just see some, like you say, square-jawed chump doing the hero thing. Yeah. She goes, I married you. I'm in this for the long haul.
Yeah, like, if I'm in it, I'm in it.
I'm in it, right?
Yeah, there's an agency there where instead of her being like the helpless thing that needs to be protected, she's like, well, you're on your own.
Right.
I'm in danger too, you're telling me, so we're in it together.
Like, for example,
again, there's what I like that there's a narrative logic there.
Yes.
Instead of falling back on, well, he's a cop on his own and she's helpless, needs to be protected, so we're just going to do that. Instead, it's like, well, he's on his own. He's telling her, well, you're in danger too. To which, of course, her response can be, well, if I'm in danger too, then I'm with you.
Right.
And then, well, why wouldn't we make her like, oh, yeah, she could be good with a gun. Like, why not? Like, she could have been taught at some point. So let's just have fun with that. I think it's cool that the narrative choice there is to give her agency, because even though, like, you can do that, so why not? You know what I mean? In other words, most action movies, like, you know, one of the problems you have with canon, most action movies fall back on cliche because they haven't got the time, they haven't got the imagination, and frankly, who cares? And we just, we want to do what works, right? We're spending a lot of money here, so we want to do what works. PM's whole thing is like, well, why not?
Right.
And if their thing is like, well, we got McWhirter, Jeff's telling her, you're in danger too, so she should just be a part of it. Like, she would, any human being in that place, well, I'm in it too, I'm married, I'm not going to run away. That's cool. What else would be cool? Well, it'd be cool if she could also handle a gun, and then she could be in the fight at the end. And they go, great. And then that's it. They don't fall back on cliche because they're worried about, well, what happens if we try something new and it doesn't work? Right? They're like, well, we've got money. We just need to make it exciting. So let's just do what we think is going to work in the moment.
Any other film, and even some other PM Entertainment films, because I don't necessarily want to say that they always make the interesting choice. Sometimes they make the obvious one as well. That scene in the bank, she would either be like beaten rather terribly, killed, or taken hostage. Right? She would be a thing that, along with revenging Banks, Wincott would have to somehow solve.
Right.
And what always becomes a problem with the kidnapping scenario or anything like that is, if you were really this like criminal mastermind willing to gun down his own men and whatever and waste anyone, why would you suddenly take a cop's wife hostage and then like have her around for long? Like, there's always that sequence in action films where like she's kicking and screaming and he's trying to carry her, the bad guy's trying to carry her, and I'm like, any other bullet, but just put a bullet in her head and get on with it. Like, there's no, like, the leverage you have against the cop is that the cop wants to stop you. Like, you don't need something to dangle in front of the cop and be like, come get me, copper. He's already coming to get you. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I agree. It's needless.
Right. If you want leverage to stop the cop killing you, I suppose. But then again, you could probably just hold a baby up in front of you. It doesn't have to be his wife, is what I'm saying. You could put like anyone in front of you. And so, and again, it's similar with like the whole, when they take a hostage in this movie, when Seagrove like grabs the woman on the train at the end, and it's sort of a flashback to when he gave up the gun when Jonathan Banks got killed.
Right.
And you have the, Chekhov's gun or Chekhov's, hostage, whatever you want to call the trope. You have this sequence where, he doesn't give up his gun. The woman, like, Seagrove lets go of the woman to walk to Jeff and then just instantly shoots her in the back. Like, that's not something you see very often either. Like, normally the kidnap victim is saved in some way, because most Hollywood movies don't just needlessly gun women down. PM Entertainment have got no problem with just needlessly gunning women down. So there are decisions like that I think usurp expectations and actually make these movies a lot more fun.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And so to that end, she is another ace in the hole, in the sense that, or ace up the sleeve, in the sense that you don't see her coming. Throughout the movie, as we said, kind of becomes like almost the second action lead. And as an actor, in a weird way, McWhirter sells it. Like, she does sell it. Even though,
no, I agree.
I think if she'd had a slightly spunkier haircut, like a slightly sexier haircut, it would have helped. I think the bob, is a little odd. But, they're not paying hairdressers. PM Entertainment's not like...
No, whatever you turn up with, whatever hair you turn up with,
fine.
that's the hair you get.
I mean, at the end of the movie, they can't even afford a shirt for Wincott. Like, at a certain point, he's like, don't worry, I'll just
I love that he
waistcoat.
turns up in his waistcoat.
Just a waistcoat
Just
and
a
jeans.
waistcoat. It's brilliant.
Great ending, though, as well.
Yeah, it's terrific ending. The idea
Because they have Jonathan Banks write a book called Last Man Standing.
even though he dies before anybody
dies.
else. It's like literally he's the first one not standing.
Yeah. First one dead. Last Man Standing. He writes a book called Last Man Standing, and then just when she's saying, like, do you think you'll be able to give up the life and go, we could go live on a beach somewhere just like Jonathan Banks wanted to do and drink margaritas or whatever.
Which again is a neat callback.
Yeah. He hears a woman having her purse stolen.
And he breaks a man's arm without a trial.
Yeah, and immediately runs over there and just starts beating him up.
Actually, I was half expected to go over there and like, genuinely like break the guy's neck.
Yes.
But he stole somebody's handbag, execution. It's like, no, I've got evidence-free executions.
But what a great way to end a PM Entertainment movie, because it immediately, like, right, snaps a perp's arm, right? Freeze frame on shirtless Wincott with his waistcoat, right? Saxophone, boom,
Yeah.
like textbook.
No, it was great.
saxophone.
It was great, and it was great because it was saying like this isn't about like happy endings for people. It's about Jeff likes punching criminals in the face.
Yeah, Jeff will never run.
Jeff will never stop punching criminals in the face.
I can't stop. It's like, but you could go to a beach and drink a margarita, or
you
I could punch a perch snatcher in the face. Is there any other scenes in the movie that you are a particular fan of? Is there anything else that we haven't covered?
I like the Corvette chase. I like
we haven't mentioned that.
I like he steals a Corvette and then drives a Corvette around for a while.
Yeah.
And then when the Errol, the bank robber,
Snake Underwood.
Snake, sorry.
I know you keep calling him Errol because he calls himself the
I just couldn't remember his name,
swashbuckler.
but Snake is bad. When Snake, the bank robber, runs away from his hideout, he's in a black Corvette. And we both thought, like, I wonder if there's going to be a Corvette chase at some point. And there was a Corvette chase. And there was a really good Corvette chase, so I enjoyed that. I really liked...
Which ended in a couple of, like, gnarly crashes.
Yeah,
like
and that was the
Corvette
point you were
really.
telling me, like, they often did close the roads down, they just filmed that. It was go, fucking hell, really? They're properly fucking around with these Corvettes.
No, I mean, they probably closed the bridge down to do the big crash.
Oh, yeah,
like
the big
a lot
crash.
of the
But I like
driving-
that too. I like that they both crashed and one of them ended up in the river and one of them ended up.
Yeah.
That was good. I liked.
What about some of the one-liners, like at the beginning where the Snake was in prison? We were talking about this.
Oh, yeah.
And
he owed him money. He's like, you got to get your money somewhere else. I'm not a bank. Hey, get it? I'm not a bank. No, I don't get it because that's not how jokes work. I can see why your expertise is robbing banks and not explaining comedy.
Well, you can't rob yourself. So he's not a bank. He's literally not a bank. Otherwise, he would have to constantly rob himself.
Yeah.
He'd be like, oh, I am a bank. Oh, wait a minute. I've got to steal from myself.
Yeah.
But no, when he goes in the water, he says something like, you're dead. Oh, Errol Flynn's dead.
Errol Flynn's dead, which is great because it's a callback to something that the guy said in the car during the car chase.
Yes.
Which he couldn't possibly hear because he's in literally
No, but he
another
heard him
car.
call himself Errol
He did, but
Flynn
like
earlier.
5 days earlier.
Yeah.
He made a comment about Errol Flynn, which is fine. Like,
Wait, this didn't happen all in one day.
well, don't get me wrong. I like the fact that it's a callback to something he couldn't have said, but also could make sense because he did say it to him. Yeah, it couldn't have heard. But it could be a callback to something he said 5 days earlier. So it was nice. I liked it. But I think I really like the fight in the strip club because he just walked in and caused trouble. And then the whole thing is like, well, I think I can walk in there and no matter how many henchmen this guy has in the strip club that he owns, I back myself to beat them all up. I don't need a plan.
No.
I'm just going to walk in there and hit everybody until I get what I want. And that absolutely is what happens.
But again, McWhirter comes in and helps him out.
Oh, that's right. Norks McWhirter comes in
and saves him a little
and
bit.
saves him. That's true. Yeah, no, it was. But I like the scene because he ends up fighting 7 guys, but not in a way that's like, oh, they're all just waiting off screen to have their turn.
Right.
They were all kind of piling on him, and it was quite confused.
Well, one of the PM,
but a nicely put together sequence. I think.
One of the PM Entertainment All Stars that we actually spoke to a couple of episodes ago when this one airs. Art Camacho does the fight choreography.
Well, it's really good. I really like the fight choreography in that one because it felt very real, but also entertaining.
Well, yeah, like things that I love, right? Which is it's a total stunt fight choreographer move, but it works. Which is he's grabbed from behind, by a guy, right?
Yeah.
And instead of being like, oh no, I can't move my arms, I'm out of this, he uses the pressure and force of a guy grabbing you and pushing you from behind to push off to kick the guy who's running at him.
Yeah.
Which I think is just like such a great move because he's well, I can actually... And it's a lot of what martial arts is about is using the other person's momentum against them. And him being able to do that, like grab from behind, great, push off his chest and kick the other guy who's coming at you in the head. That, like, just those little simple moves, I'm always like, oh, that's, do you know what I mean? There's like a thought process behind it. There's a little dance to it that I really like.
Yeah, I like that. I like the sequence when they're persuading the tattooed guy to wear a wire. And they're like, and them trying to sell him on the plan of, where the captain is not going to expect to be speaking to me. He's going to be expecting to speak to Snake, but Snake's dead.
Yes.
They go, don't worry about that. We'll take care of that. He's like,
Yeah.
but he's dead. That whole sequence, like Jeff's acting was really good.
Yes.
Like it was just a funny.
Oh yeah, we didn't talk about that.
sequence.
They weekend at Bernie.
Snake having
Yeah.
drowned, and they just. What I also like is
Also, when they dragged his corpse out of the river, who blow dried his hair back to perfect silky?
and like dried his suit.
Yeah,
Do you know what I
right.
mean? But what I like too is they don't even try and make him look anything other than a dead bloke they propped up in a chair. Do you know what I mean? It's like, don't worry, he's over there. But what I also really like is they say to him, look,
What a great idea, though.
don't make them suspicious.
Yeah.
Right? Just tell him he's behind drinking cappuccino, but
Yeah.
you're taking care of it.
Yeah.
And when they go, like, where is he? He's like, you don't need to know. He properly makes them really, really
Right.
suspicious.
And he's sweating.
And he's sweating horribly.
Sweating
But I
multiple
really like this. But it was the scene of persuading him that propping up a dead bloke in a chair and he'll be drinking a cappuccino, so don't worry about it.
Yeah.
As a plan was great. I just really like that scene.
And of course, Jeff, just to hammer it home, knees him in the hat.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, he's like, look. First of all, the
goes,
criminal
"I'm not
guy
gonna do this,
makes
they
an
won't mind."
unbelievably shit argument, which
Yes.
is, well, I'm going to hire a really good lawyer, and the lawyer I'm hired got someone off for shooting their parents, and all I did was rob a bank. So I don't think that's how evidence works. It's not like I'm a good lawyer, and so therefore I'm going to get you off this crime because it's not as big a crime as murder. It's like, it's fine. But the fact that Jeff's reply to this is to knee him in the testicles until he agrees to the plan. It's like,
He goes, all right, I'll do the plan.
brilliant. Again,
Yeah.
I really like that. The criminal's come up with a shitty idea and you've called his bluff, not through the means of intellectual argument.
No.
You've called his bluff by kneeing him in the testicles
Yes.
until he says yes.
Yeah.
And it completely works.
Knee him in the testicles.
The whole scene is great because it's weird.
Yeah.
And yet, that's what I like about it, I think. There's one of the reasons you can fall back on cliches in movies, right, is that they don't have to make sense for the audience to know what they're supposed to be thinking. What I like about this PM movie and other PM movies, you've talked about it, is that they can sell the logic of a scene without falling back on cliche. Right. And so even though the choices within the scene of like the individual choices that each character make are deeply weird, they do make sense in and of themselves and when strung together so that by the end of the scene, like, great, he's agreed to do the scheme.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, he's argued. We need him to argue, but we need him to agree. In any other thing, he'd argue with some kind of like, well, I don't really feel like I can go through it. It's like, well, you go through with it or else. And like, it won't really be believable.
Right.
If he argues by like being completely insane and not really grasping how law works, like, yeah, I could believe a criminal would massively overplay their hand and not really understand how the law works. And I could agree that the cop gets him to agree by kneeing him in the testicles.
Right.
Because of course he's going to agree. It's like, do what I say or I'll knee him in the testicles again. I'd probably agree to it.
Yeah.
So again, it's not falling back on cliche to make the scene work.
No.
They make it work with weird choices, but somehow that's better because it actually makes sense, even though none of the individual choices make sense.
None of
It's
it makes
great.
sense. But the fact that a very serious IA operative who has ties to Boston or something, which is sort of this weird throwaway plot point. Wow, that's how he got his transfer from Boston. Was that?
I think it's because the
I don't know.
guy they hired had a thick Boston accent.
Boston accent.
And they're like, well, we
He
better make him
also
from Boston then, I guess.
Great character actor.
Yeah,
face.
yeah.
Really good actor as well, considering he gets like 30
Yeah, he
seconds
is great.
of
Yeah,
screen
yeah.
time. But he just looks the business. He looks like
does.
what you would expect a sleazy Bostonian
Yeah.
IA agent who's long in the tooth and really can't be bothered with any of this. But he looks that part. The fact that his plan would be, well, we'll just hide behind this pillar while smoking cigarettes. As if people would
They
be
didn't
like,
even hide. They're just
Didn't
standing
even
next
hide
to a
any-
pillar,
they're standing
10
next to a
feet
pillar,
away.
smoking
This is
cigarettes.
not surveillance. This is
No.
just watching what's going
just
on.
standing around. And they're going to prop a corpse up in a chair. And no one in the whole subway station is going to go, wait, that's a corpse. There's a corpse there. Jimmy, don't look at the corpse.
Yeah,
You know,
and also, presumably at a certain point, they had to carry a corpse,
yes.
and then prop up in a chair. People go, did they just put a corpse in a chair? Because that looks like that's what they just did.
Yeah, I think that's a corpse there. Someone should probably call the police.
Yeah.
It would be funny if like a second squad, like the MTA police or whatever. I know it's not the MTA because it's LA, but like the metro station police show up because they're not in on this IA IA scam that they're
There's
running.
no way anybody came into the scam that was cooked up. Do you know what I mean? It was like, don't worry, we're going to put a corpse in the chair.
Yeah.
And then we're going to get the criminal to agree to do it by kneeing him in the testicles.
Also,
until he said
by the
yes.
way, all they had to do was find an outrageous silver wig, and anyone could have worn it. You know what I mean?
There's literally
purple suit and a silver
but that's
wig.
what. But again, that's what I love about the choice.
Yes.
There were so many other things they could have done to
Right.
explain away the fact that this is how it's going to go.
By the way,
but they just chose to weekend the Bernies, and it doesn't even work. At no point does it work. They're massively suspicious.
By the way-
and then they push him over.
By the way, they're stood like where we're sitting right now, right? They're stood about there.
Yeah.
And the corpse is at a coffee table, roughly where my back door is.
Yeah.
From here, if there was a corpse sat at the table over
You would
there,
know
you'd
it's
be
a
like,
corpse.
"That's."
That's a
They
corpse.
walk all the way up to it. In fact, they touch him to the point where he falls off the chair. I'm like, at what point would you not think this is a corpse?
I would like to know how the guy, the corrupt cop,
Yeah.
has managed to be corrupt successfully for this long.
Yeah.
When his reaction to, oh, this is a setup,
Yeah.
is to shoot the guy in the stomach
Shoot
in public.
everybody, yeah.
In front of many, many witnesses.
Yeah.
I really liked that was his reaction.
Well, what about
oh, this is a setup. I'm going to kill you.
early on when Banks and Wincott, they don't even confront him. They ask him a simple question about like how much money or whatever.
Yeah.
And all they say is, "Oh, that's odd because it looked more
It
like
looked more than $4,000.
more than $4,000." At which point Seagrove like loses his shit and starts stabbing him in the
Are you
chest
accusing
with
me
his
of stealing money?
finger.
Because if you're going to accuse me, you better really accuse me.
And I'm like, well, you've just given away
Feels like maybe you're a criminal.
as they walk away, they're like, I think Seagrove's crooked. I'm just
think
going out on a
Seagrove-
limb.
I'm going on a limb here, but
I'm
I
going
reckon
out on a limb,
Seagrove's
but I think
probably crooked.
Seagrove is definitely a bad egg.
No,
He doesn't. Seagrove doesn't bother. Seagrove's an idiot. I feel Seagrove is like just some.
What's weird is that bit is like, I'm just going to
chunky
take my kids for pizza. That
Yeah.
was weird.
What's
Like
that?
there's a bit when he's talking to the captain. I think they're in a church, but Seagrove's wearing like a polo, like a tucked in polo shirt. Like I'm on my day off,
Right.
And he's taking his kids for pizza. It's like,
Yeah.
Why do we need to know?
Well, because-
where Seagrove's off to?
There's always, and again, that's the other thing about PM Entertainment films. They're always dropping in information, like the whole bit where it starts in a diner, right? And you have a whole discussion back and forth with the waitress about, do you want extra this? Do you want extra that? Wincott is seemingly eating 2 plates of food.
Yeah.
Banks has a plate of food in front of him, but never eats it throughout the
No,
whole
well, he's had his
scene.
cereal and mushrooms at that point.
But like the fact that you get the waiter gets her moment, like the server gets her moment.
Yeah.
To like ask Wincott whatever, because it's all about, well, we've got to make this real, and we're like, well, yeah, but you could just start it at a diner table, and we're all like, oh, they're in a diner eating lunch. You don't need the lead in, but they want to give you that extra.
No, I liked
bit
it
of
enormously.
information.
I really,
Yes.
really did. I liked the mood of it. I liked the feel of it.
Good.
I liked how all it wanted to do was entertain me.
Yes,
I
that's all
think
they
that's
care
the
about.
thing. Like, and maybe
That's all they care about.
I don't know. Maybe it's just because you're getting older. But the more things I watch at the moment, I feel like they're telling me something that is really up for debate. Whatever it is, I
Right.
don't really feel like they're I don't really feel like they're trying to entertain me necessarily.
No.
Or if they are, they're just going from some rule book. In terms of like, well, this is how characters work, and this is how you make an exciting scene, and this is how a callback works, and it's all become so formulaic that, frankly, what's the point? What I liked about it is it doesn't want to do anything except entertain me.
Yeah.
But not in a cynical way.
No.
It feels to me like the whole movie is we've managed to get enough money to make an entertaining movie. So let's make the most entertaining movie we possibly
can make, yes.
You know what I mean? And every single, like you're saying, even with the waitress, every single decision matters. Every single moment is a moment that we could be entertaining people.
Yeah.
Instead of how do we like pad out the running time? And like you were saying before, how do we pad out the running time until we can get to the action sequence we budgeted for?
Right.
This feels more like everything is costing us money. This diner is costing us money. That waitress is costing us money. So let's make it work. This
Yes.
isn't. We're not just like, you know.
Yeah, and I think that's, and I've not come up with a sentence that fully explains what I mean. But when I put PM Entertainment straight to video movies up against other straight to video movies, whether it's action, whether it's horror, whether it's sci-fi, whether it's whatever, I just think PM Entertainment just knew instinctively, or whatever it was, how to just not make a padded or saggy film. Now, that's not to say, like, there are some of their earlier thrillers where they're not doing as much action and they're doing more character-driven, there's some violence, but mostly it's sort of character-driven thriller aspects, which, do not have the pace that some of the later ones do. And there are some of the earlier ones that don't have the budget that some of the later ones do. But there's always an attempt to, and this is more a thing. There's also always an attempt to go from A to B in the best way and the quickest way possible, and get out clean. And I feel like that is lacking in so many movies. And with all its plot inconsistencies and with all its, random decisions and with all its, oddball characters or whatever, at least PM keeps its eye on the prize.
I wonder if we were saying earlier about the cable TV thing. I wonder if a part of it too is, as much as you don't want people to leave a movie on cable TV,
right,
you're also setting up for what if people stumble on it.
Right.
How many movies do you start watching? You're channel flipping, and then you come across Wincott smoking in a motel room. It doesn't have to be like a motorbike chase or whatever. Although if you come across that, okay, well, I'm obviously watching this.
Right.
If you're channel flipping and you come across any one of those car chases, you're going to continue watching that movie. But even if you channel flip and Wincott's sitting there listening to a tape recorder with a cigarette, you're like, oh, what's going on here? Everything, even the scenes that aren't just flat out action, there's something in it to draw you in that's intriguing. And maybe it's McWhirter, or maybe it's listening to something on a tape, or even the quieter bits are something's happening and you're drawn into it immediately where you know what's going on, and then there's an action sequence right after, so then you're in. So I wonder if there's something to that as well.
There's also two last points, I know we're going on, but there are two last points that I want to make that are actually really interesting from a filmmaking standpoint. First of all, when he's listening to that tape, in order to get that thing where the word trust, so he's listening to the tape, right?
Yeah,
and normally in a Hollywood movie, he would hear what he's been waiting to hear, right? Because he's I know there's some evidence on this tape.
Yeah.
I know there's some evidence on this tape, and I need some information about this evidence, right? He would hear it, right? We would cut to our hero's face, and maybe the word would echo on the soundtrack or something like that. Or like that sequence where he was having a restless night and they were playing back in his head all the conversations he'd had with Jonathan Banks and with his police captain and everything else, right? Which was also a really effective sequence because you understood he's not sleeping because his brain is filled with all these questions.
Yeah. That was nice too, because I had a thing where he wasn't sleeping and then they cut.
Yeah.
And he's still not sleeping, but he's in a different position. She's in a different position. So he's obviously it's the whole night. Yeah, which was really neat.
But when he's listening to the tape machine, and it's this is the guy you can trust, he rewound it. And then it was guy you can trust, rewound it, you can trust, rewound it, trust. And he was the one doing it.
It was really neat.
Normally you don't see the actor doing the thing. Normally it's just a COD movie trope. They just have the word echoing trust. Similarly, later on in the movie, and they do this in PM Entertainment films all the time, and it's a lot of fun, you will hear a soundtrack. They set up the scene in the subway.
Yeah.
The subway station. They set up the scene in the subway station, and you can hear this typical PM saxophone guitar music playing in the background, only for the camera to pan over and not only reveal that the saxophone guitar sound is actually two buskers in the train station, but then the buskers turn out to be undercover cops or thugs, I don't know which one.
Undercover cops.
And pull an Uzi out of the guitar case and start capping people. So you've got this 1, 2, 3 thing. First of all, you think it's just soundtrack on the movie. Then you find out, no, it's actually part of the mise en scène of the whole setup and whatever. Then you find out, oh, no. They're also part of the shootout. It's this wonderful 1, 2, 3 punch that you would maybe say, this is the other thing. If you were in the production office or whatever, you might pitch that in a jokey moment. You might be wouldn't it be funny if, right?
Yeah.
But the fact that they then go out and like do it, and not only that, but the repeated shots of this hugely mustachioed saxophone player like shooting.
Who's pretty
people.
good. Like, can I just say, I want to see either a TV show or a movie where it's just following the guy who's a copper,
who's
and
also
a really excellent saxophone player, who is only required
busker cop,
right? On he's only required to busk
cop
during busts. He's bust, right? He's a busk, busking the busts, busker,
and his name is Busker Bust,
or Buster Busk.
Bust.
Surely Buster Busk.
Wait. Is he a busker at a bust, which would mean he would be Busker Bust?
Yeah.
Or is he a bust that needs a busker, so he's busker?
Oh, a bust busker. Oh, bust busker. He's Busker Bust, the bust busker. That's the name of the TV show right there.
Yeah. Well, you're part of Peacock. Make that happen.
I will.
No, but again, like, if PM decided we're going to do a movie about the guitarist and saxophone guy who go around like breaking, they would be the ones to do it. And I think, that's what I love about these movies. That's what I love about this production company, and that's why I think it continues to bring me joy. Is that I don't feel like any decisions or ideas are off the table. So anyway, Jim, do you have any final thoughts on the movie at all? Anything you want to depart from your first experience of PM Entertainment?
I guess that I was surprised how much I enjoyed it.
Okay.
In that I really enjoyed listening to your podcasts. I've been really interested in watching the movies. I expected that I would enjoy them. But having watched one, the experience of watching it was as fun and entertaining and rewarding as I could have possibly hoped. And so often that's not really the case with life, right? It doesn't usually live up to expectations. So it did more than live up to expectations. So I'm really glad to have found these movies through the podcast.
Excellent. And I want to say personally, thank you ever so much for doing the show. One of the biggest things I miss as much as I love my current life, one of the biggest things I miss is podcasting with you. I feel like we have a very unique chemistry when it comes to like podcasting, and a unique way to talk about stuff, because we're on the same wavelength, but we also come at things slightly differently, but we also have like a mutual respect. So there's like an interesting thing there. Plus we can riff. Anyway, look, thanks ever so much, man. This has been a real pleasure. And you're welcome back anytime. Welcome back anytime.
Cheers, man.
You are now leaving the PM Entertainment Podcast.